Chapter 1601. Rengue, take the right guards and surround the Supreme Court. Tonight, no one from the Supreme Court is allowed to leave. No one is allowed to leave. Do you understand? Outside the Supreme Court, after seeing Lu Dui off, Li Zixuan looked at Lu Rengue and solemnly instructed. Hearing this, Lu Rengue felt a little awkward. He was just a lowly officer in the Right Guards. How could he have the authority to surround the Supreme Court? Wasn't this drawing hatred to the Right Guards? But when he saw Li Zixuan's solemn face, he thought for a moment and immediately reacted. Marquis is worried that someone from the Supreme Court will spread the news of Du Yi's arrest, thus alerting the enemy and causing Dragon Sect to not dare to come down the mountain again? Li Zixuan had also told Lu Rengue about the Dragon Sect's secret letter that Li Junxian had sent back. That was why Lu Rengue had such a guess. Yes, but not all of them. Li Zixuan nodded and then shook his head. Half a month ago, in order to obtain the Heavenly Dragon's sacred water and swear loyalty to the Dragon Sect, the Supreme Court's warden Yi Hong colluded with outsiders to kill a key witness, the shopkeeper of the Yanhuang Bank in Xinfeng County, Jin Wanfu. Since the Supreme Court has Yi Hong, there might be dozens or even hundreds of Yi Hong who are loyal to the Dragon Sect and could betray the court at any time. Once the news of Du Yi's capture spreads, the spies of the Dragon Sect in Chang will definitely do everything they can to pass the news to the Snake Spirit Mountain. At that time, whether the dragon head of the Dragon Sect will dare to send troops as scheduled will be an unknown. In addition, if those with evil intentions in Chang know that Du Yi has been captured, they will probably have scruples and not give themselves away. As he finished speaking, the corners of Li Zixuan's mouth curled into a meaningful sneer. Naturally, he was referring to the officials in Chang city who might have colluded with the Dragon Sect. Today, he had mobilized 5,000 soldiers from the Right Guards and deployed an inescapable net near the houses of the key suspects. Was it not to wait for those officials to open the city gates for the Dragon Sect tomorrow or to create chaos? Only when Li Er dealt with those old officials who were still loyal to Li Jianqing would there be no controversy, and Old Li would not be labeled as narrow-minded. Lu Rengue's expression turned solemn as he cupped his fists and said, "This general obeys. I won't let anyone walk out of the Supreme Court tonight." "Yes. Thank you for your hard work." Li Zixuan patted Lu Rengue's shoulder and walked into the Supreme Court. Under the guidance of a bailiff, Li Zixuan came to a torture chamber in the Supreme Court. Lu Dui, Daizhou, Sun Fujia, and Du Yi were all inside. However, Du Yi had changed into a white prison uniform and his hands and feet were shackled in a tie shape. He was tied to a wooden frame. When Li Zixuan pushed open the door and entered, there was an interrogation going on inside. "Marquis Yong'an, you're here." Hearing the movement, Lu Dui and the others turned to look. Then, Lu Dui stood up and greeted Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan cupped his fists and returned the greeting. He went straight to the point and said, "How did the interrogation go? What did this Du Yi recruit?" Hearing this, Sun Fujia smiled bitterly and cupped her fists. "Marquis, this Du Yi is very stubborn. He said that he will only confess if you come. Otherwise, even if we torture him, he won't say a word." "There's actually such a thing?" Li Zixuan frowned, and then he walked up to Du Yi and asked in a cold voice, "Du Yi, since things have come to this, do you still refuse to realize your error and continue down this path until it's dark?" Du Yi raised his head and looked at Li Zixuan. He asked, "If this poor monk tells you the truth about the Dragon Sect, will you spare this poor monk?" Li Zixuan narrowed his eyes and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He said, "Are you trying to negotiate with this Marquis?" Thinking about how he almost died under Li Zixuan's sword, Du Yi couldn't help but tremble. He hurriedly shook his head. "This poor monk only wants to find a way to live. I hope Marquis Yong can fulfill my wish. You don't have the right to negotiate with this Marquis." Li Zixuan turned around and said indifferently with his hands behind his back, "Even if you don't say anything, the dragon sect will still be defeated when they attack Chang, and city tomorrow. This marquis is only asking you to give you a chance. What? How do you know that the dragon sect will attack the city tomorrow? Dui was shocked when he heard this. He was planning to use this information to exchange for a chance to survive, but Li Zishuan's words completely extinguished his hope. This marquis not only knows that the dragon sect will attack Chang, and city tomorrow, but I also know that the dragon sect is hiding in Snake Spirit Mountain. Li Zishuan snorted coldly and threw another heavy bomb at Dui. Dui's mouth opened in shock. Li Zishuan's eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. He looked at the shocked Dui and asked, "Are you very puzzled why this marquis didn't report to the imperial court and send an army to besiege Snake Spirit Mountain after knowing that the dragon sect is in there?" Dui nodded. Although he didn't say anything, his meaning was self-evident. Li Zishuan stared into Dui's eyes and said word by word, "Because the current emperor has already set up an inescapable net in and outside the city, waiting for the dragon sect to fall into the net. The dragon head of the dragon sect wants to use the incident of the imperial ancestral temple to incite the people to rebel against the imperial court and cause chaos in the city so that he can attack the city, right?" Dui's eyes finally revealed a trace of fear. He said in a trembling voice, "Impossible! Only the dragon head and I know about this matter. How could you know that we buried something in the imperial ancestral temple? You are the devil, you are the devil." Li Zishuan sneered. "If you don't want people to know, don't do it. Your plan that you thought was foolproof is full of loopholes in my eyes. Therefore, the internal and external troubles of Chang and city have been eliminated. We are only waiting for your dragon head to walk into the net tomorrow. If you are still unwilling to tell the truth, then this marquis will kill you now. Anyway, if you don't say something, there will be someone else who will." Merciless. Li Zishuan's words mercilessly destroyed all the thoughts in Dui's heart. He stared at Li Zishuan, his eyes revealing shock, fear, and unwillingness. Yes, he was unreconciled. After a long time, Dui sighed dejectedly and muttered to himself, No wonder the dragon head said that you are the biggest variable in our plan. Only you can break our dragon slaying plan. Now it seems that the dragon sect really lost because of you. Hateful that Tuju Estate preceptor attacked Yanhuang College. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come all the way from the northern part of the Tang Empire to Chang and hateful. Li Zishuan was speechless. Using heavenly thunder to ignite fireworks, gunpowder, sulfur, and charcoal. If he hadn't happened to encounter such a thing, no one in the entire Chang and city would have been able to see through this plot. In other words, although Wu Jie had attacked the Yanhuang Academy, he had unknowingly helped the Tang Imperial Court. This was truly a case of fortune and misfortune depending on one's misfortune. Lu Dui, Dai Zhou, and Sun Fujia couldn't help but open their mouths. At this moment, their hearts were filled with joy. Of course, it wasn't because Yanhuang College was attacked by Wu Jie, but because Li Zishuan returned before the Dragon Sect's plot. Otherwise, even if Chang and city wasn't captured, the imperial court would have suffered heavy losses. Of course, the three of them were convinced by the second half of Dui's words. Even the arrogant Dai Zhou had to admit that if he was the one investigating the case, he definitely wouldn't be able to see through the Dragon Sect's conspiracy in Chang and city in a single day. Although this poor monk knows that he doesn't have the qualifications to talk terms with Marquis, this poor monk still wants to beg Marquis to let this poor monk live. Although Marquis has seen through the series of conspiracies deployed by the Dragon Sect inside and outside Chang and city, I'm sure Marquis doesn't know about the other matters of the sect. I'm willing to tell you the truth. After a moment of silence, Dui looked up at Li Zishuan and said sincerely. His tone was no longer as firm as before. His previous words more or less carried a threat, but now it was more of a plea. The initiative of the conversation was already in Li Zixuan's hands. Lu Dui, Dai Zhou, and Sun Fujiao were all experienced interrogators. How could they not see the change in the situation? The three of them couldn't help but give Li Zixuan a big thumbs up in their hearts. Li Zixuan said indifferently, "If you don't speak, you will die now. If you speak, this marquis may give you a chance to live on account of your sincerity. The choice is up to you. Anyway, the other matters of the dragon sect are not important to the overall situation. Even if you don't speak, after the dragon sect is annihilated tomorrow, this marquis can let the others speak." Secure in his backing, Li Zixuan put on a fearless look, further grasping the initiative of the conversation and once again breaking down the line of defense in Du Yi's heart. Du Yi's face was pale. He gritted his teeth and said, "Fine. This poor monk will say everything. I hope that Marquis Yong can let this poor monk live on account of this poor monk's honest confession. This poor monk will immediately return to India and never take a step into Great Tang. This fellow's every sentence was survival. His desire to live was simply overflowing. You speak first." Li Zixuan secretly heaved a sigh of relief, then turned around and sat beside Sun Fujiao. Sun Fujiao was already holding a pen, ready to record the contents of Du Yi's confession. Because they were worried that the secret would be leaked, there were only Li Zixuan, Lu Dui, Dai Zhou, Sun Fujiao, and Du Yi in this torture room. There were no bailiffs, jailers, or clerks to record the contents of the interrogation. Therefore, Sun Fujiao, the Shaoqing of the Supreme Court, could only work as a clerk. "Your Majesty, Marquis Yong, requests an audience." At around 9 o'clock in the evening, the Sweet Dew Hall was still brightly lit. Zhao Song walked in quietly and reported to Li Er, who was sitting on the seat of honor with his chin resting on his hand. Is there news from the Supreme Court? Let him in." Li Er's eyes lit up and immediately recovered from his thoughts. He quickly straightened his body and ordered. "Yes." Zhao Song received the order and left. After a while, Li Zixuan walked in from outside the hall. He cupped his hands and said to Li Er, "Your subject Li Zixuan pays his respects to your Majesty." The Supreme Court was in the outer palace and was only separated from the inner palace by a city wall. At this time, the city gate between the inner and outer palace was naturally sealed. However, the situation was urgent now. Furthermore, Li Zixuan still had the golden token bestowed by Li Er. Naturally, he could openly pass through the gate of heaven influence and enter the Sweet Dew Hall of Taiji Palace. "Rise." Li Er waved his hand and quickly asked, "How was the interrogation? Did Du Yi confess truthfully?" Chapter 1602. Gold Medal? What gold medal? Inside the Sweet Nectar Hall, Li Zixuan's narration revealed the dragon sect's rapid development and meticulous planning in the past year. Whether it was bewitching the people, bribing the local officials, recruiting the shopkeeper of Yanhuang Bank, or plotting to bomb the Imperial Ancestral Temple, all of these plots were shocking. Li Er grasped a very crucial point. His tiger eyes narrowed as he asked in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, this is the gold medal found on Du Yi's body." Li Zixuan was silent for a moment and took out a gold medal from his waist. The gold medal looked very light, but Li Zixuan held it especially heavy because he knew that this gold medal was related to the lives of many people. Without waiting for Li Er's order, Zhao Song stepped forward to receive the gold medal and presented it. Li Er held the gold medallion with one hand and placed it in front of his eyes. His face immediately sank as he saw the words, "East Palace," written on the gold medallion. Beside it was a small line of words, "Wuda Yuan Year System." In the first year of Wuda, Yuan Huaji killed Sui Yang Emperor Yang Guang in Jiangdu. Not long after, Sui Gong Emperor Yang Yu gave up the throne to Li Yuan. After Li Yuan became emperor, he made Li Jian the crown prince. Since then, Li Jianqing had officially become the first master of the Great Tang Eastern Palace. This was an Eastern Palace gold medallion from the first year of Wuda. The hidden meaning behind this was something that anyone with a bit of knowledge could understand. It was precisely because this case involved King Shi Li Jianqing that the entire Supreme Court was now under the joint control of Lu Dui and Li Zixuan. Outsiders were not allowed to enter and those inside were not allowed to leave. Even Lu Dui did not return home tonight. Everything would have to wait until tomorrow morning for the Dragon Sect to attack the city. According to Du Yi, the Dragon Sect has a total of 3 of these gold medals. They are respectively kept by the Dragon Head, the Judge, and him. Li Er's face was as calm as water. Li Zixuan cupped his hands and added, "Who is the Dragon Head of the Dragon Sect?" After a long while, Li Zixuan put down the command token. His eyes emitted a cold light as he suddenly looked at Li Zixuan and asked in a deep voice. Li Zixuan cupped his fists and replied, "Replying to your Majesty, Du Yi said that he didn't know the name of their Dragon Head, nor his identity. This was because the Dragon Head of Heavenly Dragon Sect had never shown his true face to anyone. The people of Heavenly Dragon Sect only addressed him as Dragon Head, but no one knew his name or his origin." Li Er was slightly disappointed when he heard this. His gaze gradually turned cold. He paused and said, "No matter what, the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon Sect must be related to King Shi. Investigate. I want to know the identity of the Heavenly Dragon Sect's Dragon Head. If possible, we'll fight the Heavenly Dragon Sect tomorrow and capture him alive." Li Zixuan cupped his fists and accepted the order. This subject obeys the decree. The hall fell into silence. Although Li Er and Li Jianqing were brothers, the 2 brothers fought each other to the death for the throne. In today's Tang Empire, the name Li Jianqing had long become a taboo. No one dared to mention this name in front of Li Er. Now, because of the Eastern Palace's gold medallion, the name of King Shi Li Jianqing once again appeared in the palace. However, for the Dragon Head of Heavenly Dragon Sect, it was not a good thing. "Replying to your Majesty, this time Du Yi sneaked into Chang'an City with this gold medallion and visited the main officials of King Shi's faction in Chang'an City. Among them were 24 officials, 6 generals in the army, and 7 eunuchs in the palace. This subject has a list of names. Please take a look." The hall was silent for a while. Li Zixuan took out a piece of paper filled with words from his sleeve and handed it over to Zhao Song. This light piece of paper carried the future of dozens of people. It could not be said that it was not heavy. Li Er took the paper and placed it on the dragon table. Then, he narrowed his eyes and looked at it carefully. "Gold medallion? What gold medallion?" In the Sweet Dew Hall, Li Zixuan explained the rapid development and meticulous planning of the Heavenly Dragon Sect over the past year. Whether it was bewitching the people, bribing local officials, recruiting the manager of the Yanhuang Bank, or plotting to bomb the Imperial Ancestral Temple, all of these schemes were shocking to the eye. Li Er grasped a very crucial point. His eyes focused as he asked in a low voice, "Your Majesty, this is the gold medallion found on Du Yi's body." After a moment of silence, Li Zixuan took out a gold medallion from his waist. The gold medallion seemed very light, but it was especially heavy in Li Zixuan's hands. This was because he knew that this gold medallion concerned the lives of many people. Without waiting for Li Er's order, Zhao Song stepped forward to take the gold medallion and presented it. Li Er held the gold medallion with one hand and looked at it in front of his eyes. His face immediately sank. On the gold medallion were the words, "East Palace," and beside it was a small line of words, "Wuda Yuan Year." In the first year of Wuda, Yuan Huaji killed Emperor Yang Guang of Sui in Jiangdu. Not long after, Emperor Gong of Sui, Yang Yu, abdicated the throne to Li Yuan. After Li Yuan became emperor, he made Li Jian the crown prince. From then on, Li Jianqing officially became the first master of the East Palace of Tang Dynasty. A gold medallion from the first year of Wuda, the hidden meaning behind this could be understood by anyone with a bit of knowledge. It was precisely because the case involved King Shi Li Jianqing that the entire Supreme Court was now under the joint control of Lu Dui and Li Zixuan. Outsiders were not allowed to enter and those inside were not allowed to leave. Even Lu Dui, the minister of the Supreme Court, did not return home tonight. Everything would have to wait until the next morning when the Heavenly Dragon sect attacked the city. According to Du Yi, the Heavenly Dragon sect has a total of 3 gold medallions. They are respectively kept by the Dragon Head, the judge, and him. Li Zixuan's face was gloomy, while Li Zixuan added, "Who is the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect?" After a long while, Li Zixuan put down the gold medallion. His eyes emitted a cold light as he suddenly looked at Li Zixuan and asked in a deep voice. Li Zixuan cupped his hands and replied, "Replying to your Majesty, Du Yi also said that he didn't know the name of their Dragon Head, nor his identity. This was because the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect had never shown his true face to anyone. The Heavenly Dragon sect's people only addressed him as Dragon Head, but no one knew his name or his origin." Li Zixuan was slightly disappointed when he heard this. His eyes gradually turned cold. After a pause, he said, "In any case, the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect must be related to King Shi. Investigate. I want to know the identity of the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect. If possible, tomorrow when we fight with the Heavenly Dragon sect, capture him alive." Li Zixuan cupped his fists and said, "This subject obeys your Majesty." The hall fell into silence. Although Li Zixuan and Li Jianqing were brothers, for the sake of the throne, these 2 brothers fought to the death. In today's Tang Empire, the name Li Jianqing had long become a taboo. No one dared to mention this name in front of Li Zixuan. Now, because of a gold medallion from the Eastern Palace, the name of King Shi Li Jianqing once again appeared in the Imperial Palace. However, for the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect, it was not a good thing. "Replying to your Majesty, this time Du Yi sneaked into Chang'an City with this gold medallion and visited the main officials of King Shi's faction in Chang'an City. Among them were 24 officials, 6 generals in the army, and 7 eunuchs in the Imperial Palace. This subject has a list here, please take a look." The hall was silent for a while. Li Zixuan took out a piece of paper full of words from his sleeve and handed it over to Zhao Song. This light piece of paper carried the future of dozens of people. It could not be said that it was not heavy. Li Zixuan took the paper and placed it on the dragon table. Then, he narrowed his eyes and looked carefully. "Gold medallion? What gold medallion?" In the Sweet Dew Hall, Li Zixuan explained the rapid development and careful planning of the Heavenly Dragon sect over the past year. Whether it was bewitching the people, bribing local officials, taking in the shopkeeper of the Yanhuang Bank, or plotting to bomb the Imperial Ancestral Temple, all of these schemes were shocking. Li Zixuan grasped a very crucial point. His eyes focused as he asked in a low voice, "Your Majesty, this is the gold medallion found on Du Yi's body." After a moment of silence, Li Zixuan took out a gold medallion from his waist. The gold medallion seemed very light, but it was especially heavy in Li Zixuan's hands. This was because he knew that this gold medallion concerned the lives of many people. Without needing Li Zixuan's order, Zhao Song stepped forward to take the gold medallion and presented it. Li Zixuan held the gold medallion with one hand and looked at it in front of his eyes. His face immediately sank. On the gold medallion were the words Eastern Palace, and beside it was a small line of words Wuda Yuan Year System. In the first year of Wuda, Yuan Huaji killed Sui Yang Emperor Yang Guang in Jiangdu. Not long after, Sui Gong Emperor Yang Yu abdicated the throne to Li Yuan. After Li Yuan became emperor, he made Li Jian the crown prince. From then on, Li Jianqing officially became the first master of the Great Tang Eastern Palace. A gold medallion from the first year of Wuda from the Eastern Palace. The hidden meaning behind this could be understood by anyone with a bit of knowledge. It was precisely because this case involved King Shi Li Jianqing that the entire Supreme Court was now under the joint control of Lu Dui and Li Zixuan. Outsiders were not allowed to enter and those inside were not allowed to leave. Even Lu Dui did not return home tonight. Everything would have to wait until tomorrow morning when the Heavenly Dragon sect attacked the city. According to Du Yi, the Heavenly Dragon sect has a total of 3 gold medallions. They are respectively kept by the Dragon Head, the judge, and him. Li Zixuan's face was gloomy like water. Li Zixuan cupped his hands and added, "Who is the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect?" After a long while, Li Zixuan put down the gold medallion. His eyes emitted a cold light. He suddenly looked at Li Zixuan and asked in a deep voice. Li Zixuan cupped his hands and replied, "Replying to your Majesty, Du Yi also said that he didn't know the name of their Dragon Head, nor his identity. This was because the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect had never shown his true face to anyone. The Heavenly Dragon sect's people only called him Dragon Head, but no one knew his surname, his name, or his origins." Hearing this, Li Zixuan was slightly disappointed. His eyes gradually turned cold. After a pause, he said, "In any case, the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect must be related to King Shi. Investigate. I want to know the identity of the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect. If possible, tomorrow when we fight with the Heavenly Dragon sect, capture him alive." Li Zixuan cupped his hands and said, "This subject obeys your Majesty." The hall fell into silence. Although Li Zixuan and Li Jianqing were brothers, for the sake of the throne, these 2 brothers fought to the death. In today's Tang Empire, the name Li Jianqing had long become a taboo. No one dared to mention this name in front of Li Zixuan. Now, because of a gold medallion from the Eastern Palace, the name of King Shi Li Jianqing once again appeared in the Imperial Palace. However, for the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect, it was not a good thing. Replying to your Majesty, this time Du Yi sneaked into Chang'an City with this gold medallion. He visited the main officials of King Shi's faction in Chang'an City. Among them were 24 officials, 6 generals in the army, and 7 eunuchs in the Imperial Palace. This subject has a list of names here. Your Majesty, please take a look. The hall was silent for a while. Li Zixuan took out a piece of paper full of words from his sleeve and handed it to Zhao Song. This light piece of paper carried the future of dozens of people. It could not be said that it was not heavy. Li Zixuan took the paper and placed it on the dragon table. Then, he narrowed his eyes and looked carefully. Gold medallion? What gold medallion? In the Sweet Dew Hall, Li Zixuan explained the rapid development and careful planning of the Heavenly Dragon sect over the past year. Whether it was bewitching the people, bribing local officials, taking in the shopkeeper of the Yanhuang Bank, or plotting to bomb the Imperial Ancestral Temple, all of these plots were shocking. Li Zixuan grasped a very important point. His eyes focused as he asked in a low voice, "Your Majesty, this is the gold medallion found on Du Yi's body." After a moment of silence, Li Zixuan took out a gold medallion from his waist. The gold medallion seemed very light, but it was especially heavy in Li Zixuan's hands. This was because he knew that this gold medallion concerned the lives of many people. Without needing Li Zixuan's order, Zhao Song stepped forward to take the gold medallion and presented it. Li Zixuan held the gold medallion with one hand and looked at it in front of his eyes. His face immediately sank. On the gold medallion were the words Eastern Palace, and beside it was a small line of words Wuda Yuan Year System. In the first year of Wuda, Yuan Huaji killed Sui Yang Emperor Yang Guang in Jiangdu. Not long after, Sui Gong Emperor Yang Yu abdicated the throne to Li Yuan. After Li Yuan became emperor, he made Li Jian the crown prince. From then on, Li Jianqing officially became the first master of the Great Tang Eastern Palace. A gold medallion from the first year of Wuda from the Eastern Palace. The hidden meaning behind this could be understood by anyone with a bit of knowledge. It was precisely because this case involved King Shili Jianqing that the entire Supreme Court was now under the joint control of Lu Dui and Li Zixuan. Outsiders were not allowed to enter and those inside were not allowed to leave. Even Lu Dui did not return home tonight. Everything would have to wait until tomorrow morning when the Heavenly Dragon sect attacked the city. According to Dui, the Heavenly Dragon sect has a total of 3 such gold medallions. They are respectively kept by the Dragon Head, the Judge, and him. Li Zixuan's face was gloomy. Below the court, Li Zixuan cupped his hands and added, "Who is the Dragon Head of the Heavenly Dragon sect?" After a long while, Li Zixuan put down the gold medallion. His eyes emitted a cold light as he suddenly looked at Li Zixuan and asked in a deep voice. Chapter 1603. Opium was first brought back from the western regions by Zhang Qian in 139 BC when he was on a diplomatic mission to the western regions. It was then introduced into China. In the 7th or 8th century AD, opium poppy was introduced into China from India and other places. There was another record of opium poppy in the history books. In the 2nd year of Qianfeng, 667, King of Fumo, sent an envoy to present Diega, Fuxiong, formerly known as Deqin or the Eastern Roman Empire. Chinese people pronounced the A sound as the crow sound. But at that time, it was more commonly known as Thiaka, also known as Diega. It was said that the evaluation was thousands of divine prescriptions, 800 medicinal names, the yellow pill can be 1,000 A, good for curing 10,000 diseases. Because of the bright and dazzling flowers of the opium poppy, when it was introduced into the Tang Dynasty, people initially called it Aphrodite. Opium poppy was only an ornamental plant. Later, it gradually evolved into a kind of drug, and was also an important raw material for modern heroin. Opium poppy cultivation in China began in the late 7th or early 8th century. A Tang Dynasty poem wrote, "Blossoming emptiness is better than grass, how can it help the people when it is strong? But laughing at the field of rice and millet, not smelling the string pipe of youth." This was the earliest record of opium poppy cultivation that could be found in China. Rice sack flower is another name for opium poppy. Li Zixuan did not study history in his previous life, nor did he study medicine. Naturally, he did not know that Diego was opium poppy, nor did he personally come into contact with opium poppy flowers. But he had seen it in a TV series called Fantasy Night of the Great Tang. The first case in the TV series was related to Aphrodite. It was about someone using a cruise ship to carry out a transaction with Aphrodite, resulting in a tragedy. Therefore, previously at the Supreme Court, when Du-Yi drew the petals of the Diaja flower and said, "This flower is bright and dazzling, comparable to a hibiscus," combined with the pain-relieving effect of the Heavenly Dragon sect's Jade Lake holy water and the addictive side effects, Li Zixuan instantly realized that this Diaja could very well be the poppy, which was also the Aphrodite that the people of the Middle Tang Dynasty spoke of. Lu Dui, Daizhou, Sun Fujia and the others might not know the horrors of the opium poppy, but Li Zixuan was a modern man of the 21st century. He had read about the modern history of China and naturally knew the heavy damage that opium had brought to this ancient country. In the 19th century, the China of China was almost wiped out by the Western powers because of opium. Now that Li Zixuan had an official position and power, he naturally had to do his best to stop the opium poppy from wreaking havoc in the Great Tang. In the Sweet Dew Hall, after hearing Li Zixuan's words, Li Er's breathing quickened. The scene that Li Zixuan had described was truly too terrifying. Li Er's eyes widened as he said with a face full of shock, "Aphrodite. There is actually such a terrifying flower in this world?" Li Zixuan once again cupped his hands and said, "What this subject said just now is absolutely true. I hope that your Majesty will carefully consider it and not look down on Aphrodite. Otherwise, once this thing becomes rampant in the Great Tang, no one will be able to stop it." Li Er's expression was grim. After a moment of silence, he nodded and said, "Good. After settling the matter with the dragon sect, we will issue a decree to completely ban the Jade Lake holy water and list Aphrodite as a forbidden flower. We will strictly order all future sovereigns of the Great Tang not to touch this taboo. If they violate this decree, they will be punished by both humans and gods." No matter what, Li Er could be considered a relatively open-minded sovereign. Of course, the most important thing was that Li Zishuan had said it so solemnly and had even mentioned his master, spiritual master Lingshu. Old Li had no choice but to believe it. "Your Majesty is wise." Li Zishuan inwardly breathed a sigh of relief. The ancients attached great importance to filial piety. Even the Son of Heaven could not override filial piety. With this system set by Li Er, at the very least, it could ensure that there would be no large-scale cultivation of opium poppies in China in the Tang Dynasty. Li Er frowned and asked again, "But according to what you said, wouldn't the people of Chang, and who recently joined the dragon sect, be addicted to the Jade Lake holy water and unable to leave it?" Li Zishuan thought for a moment and shook his head. "Probably not. According to Du Yi, there was a limited amount of Yaoqi holy water, but there were tens of thousands of Heavenly Dragon Sect members. Therefore, not every Heavenly Dragon Sect disciple could get Yaoqi holy water every day. Even their inner disciples could only get a bowl every once in a while. Most people would not get addicted to this level of consumption. As for those few people who are already addicted, after locking them up for a while, they can forcibly kick their addiction to the Jade Lake holy water." "That's good." Li Er nodded and breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he looked at Li Zishuan with a gratified expression and said, "From the time we gave you the task of eliminating the dragon sect's conspiracy in the morning until now, you have captured Du Yi and thoroughly understood the dragon sect's deployment. Marquis Yong'an, you have done well this time. After we destroy the dragon sect tomorrow, we will reward you together. It's getting late now, you should go back and rest." "Your Majesty is too kind. This is what this subject should do." "It's getting late, this subject will take his leave," Li Zishuan said modestly and then cupped his hands to take his leave. Of course, he was going back to his old residence in Yongla Lane at night, not to the Supreme Court. Although he had asked everyone in the Supreme Court not to leave tonight, this did not include himself. First of all, he would definitely not leak the news that Du Yi was caught. Secondly, there was no place for him to rest in the Supreme Court. In addition, he had an important thing to do after returning to his old residence. Zhao Song, Jun Xian is not in Chang'an. Tomorrow morning, you will lead the 100 cavalry to cooperate with the right guards and secretly monitor the officials on the list. If they do anything strange, there is no need to report to me. Capture them immediately." After Li Zishuan left, Li Er closed his eyes and pondered for a moment. Then, he suddenly opened his eyes and said to Zhao Song. Zhao Song's expression turned solemn as he bowed and accepted the order. This old servant obeys. However, he was secretly sighing in his heart. "Looks like tomorrow's Chang'an city will be bathed in blood?" Li Er nodded and ordered, "Go to the Supreme Court now and personally bring Du Yi out. Bring him to the 100 cavalry barracks and let them watch over him." In Du Yi's confession, not only did he describe the dragon sect's deployment over the past year, he also admitted that he had attempted to kidnap Li Chengqian and Chang'e in Shi City this morning. Naturally, Li Er wished for such a heinous person to die immediately. However, Du Yi was a crucial witness in the current situation of Chang'an. Li Er did not want him to die immediately. To ensure his safety, Li Er had no choice but to let Zhao Song bring him to the 100 Cavalry Department. After all, in today's turbulent situation, the only army in Chang'an city that Li Er could absolutely trust was the 100 Cavalry Barracks. Understood. Zhao Song cupped his hands in acknowledgement and then turned to leave the hall for the Supreme Court. Chapter 1604. Is there still no news of Du Yi in Chang'an? the dragon head of the dragon sect asked in a low voice as he sat in a hut in the middle of the Snake Spirit Mountain. Other than him, the only other person in the room was the finger-breaker magistrate, Zhang Liang. Therefore, he was definitely asking Zhang Liang this question. Dragon head, the 4 gates of Chang and are still closed. Our men still have no news of the venerable. Zhang Liang bowed. The iron-masked man fell silent. After a while, he said slowly, "No news is the best news. This means that Du Yi has not fallen into the hands of the imperial court. Otherwise, the imperial court would have relaxed the ban." Dragon head is wise. Zhang Liang could not help but flatter him. The iron-masked man was unmoved. He continued to ask, "How are the preparations on General Luo's side?" Zhang Liang pondered for a moment and replied, "Dragon head, everything is normal on General Luo's side. Tomorrow, at 3 a.m., the 20,000 Sky Dragon Army and 30,000 loyal Sky Dragon sect followers will set off and rush to Chang'an City." The iron-masked man nodded with satisfaction and said, "Good. When our army reaches the city of Chang'an, Du Yi will instigate the people to create chaos for us and open the city gates. With the cooperation from the inside and the outside, this impregnable city of Chang'an can be broken in half a day. By then, the entire country will be mine." The iron-masked man could not hide his excitement. Zhang Liang cupped his hands and said, "I congratulate you in advance for your victory and ascension to the throne." Forget it. It's getting late. You should go and rest. There's still a big battle tomorrow." The iron-masked man's worries disappeared. He waved his hand and said, "I'll leave now. This subordinate will take his leave. Dragon head should also rest early." Zhang Liang cupped his hands and left the hut. "Hey, Junjian, it's so late, why aren't you asleep yet?" Late at night, in a tent at the foot of the northern peak of the Snake Spirit Mountain, a burly man muttered softly. After a while, another man's voice was heard, "Brother Nyo, I can't sleep." "Hey, you brat. I'm going to pee outside. If you can't sleep, you can come with me." The man with the coarse voice at the beginning grinned and sat up from the couch. Then, he quietly left the tent. Soon, the other man followed him out. They came to an open space a few dozen steps away from the tent. After the burly man finished relieving himself, he brought the man to sit on the lawn and asked, "What's wrong? There's going to be a war tomorrow. Are you scared now?" "I'm a little scared. After all, I've only hunted rabbits and pheasants in the mountains before. I've never killed anyone before." "Hey, what was there to be afraid of? You'll get used to it once you get used to it. You'll get used to it. Big Brother Meng, have you been on the battlefield before?" "In the past." Sigh. "In the past, I followed the Imperial Army to the north to fight against the Turk. I didn't expect that I would become a rebel army that is about to attack Chang'an City." "What? Big Brother Meng, you used to be a government soldier? What's wrong? Doesn't seem like it?" "I'm not bragging. Back in the Yunzhou region, I killed more Turks than I can count with one hand. But Big Brother Meng, since you used to be a government soldier of the Great Tang, why now? Why did you join the Dragon sect and rebel against the Imperial Court?" "Big Brother Meng, don't misunderstand. I didn't mean anything else. Hey, a rebel army is a rebel army. There's no point in quibbling. I didn't want to betray the Imperial Court, nor did I want to be a rebel. But sometimes I can't do whatever I want. I'm from Qingzhou. Last summer there was a famine in Qingzhou. Although the provincial government had allocated some food, many people still starved to death. In order to survive, I went to the city to move goods. My daily salary was only enough to buy a caddy of rice. One day, when I returned home, I found that the entire village had been ransacked by the bandits nearby. The remaining 5 caddies of rice at home were also taken away by the bandits. In order to protect the rice at home, my mother was severely injured by the bandit. I wanted to bring my mother to the city for treatment the next day, but the next morning, a group of people came to the village. Not only did they give the villagers porridge, but they also treated the people who had been injured by the bandits the day before. At that time, my mother's injuries were very serious and several of her bones were broken. Originally, I didn't expect those people to be able to heal my mother. Who knew that a monk in that group not only quickly reconnected my mother's bones, he also gave my mother a bowl of Jade Lake holy water. After my mother drank it, her body immediately stopped hurting. She kept saying that the monk was the reincarnation of a Buddha. Later on, the dragon sect started recruiting disciples in Qingzhou. In order to repay their kindness, I joined the dragon sect. In addition, although my mother's previous injuries were treated, she had to drink the Jade Lake holy water once every 5 days. Otherwise, her body would hurt terribly again. In order to obtain the Jade Lake holy water, I trained hard in the dragon sect. Coupled with my previous experience on the battlefield, I was quickly assigned to the Earth Emanations camp. After that, I met you. I didn't expect Big Brother Meng to have such an experience. Heh. To tell you the truth, the majority of the people in the Heavenly Dragon Army have received favors from the Dragon Head or the Venerable One. Thus, even though we know that the Dragon Head is going to attack Chang'an City tomorrow and completely fall out with the Imperial Court, none of us cowered. Haha. Alright. It's getting late. Let's go back to the tent and continue resting. The army will set off early tomorrow morning. After saying that, the burly man shook his head and walked back to the tent with a sigh. Under the moonlight, Li Juanxian's mouth was agape as he looked at the burly man's back and sighed. It turns out that many people in the Heavenly Dragon Army have a deep past behind them. Attacking Chang'an City and betraying the Imperial Court might not have been their original intention. Some of them only wanted to repay the favor they had received from the dragon sect. However, the price for doing so would probably be very heavy. At this moment, Li Juanxian's heart began to waver. In the past, he had thought that the dragon sect were mostly greedy and evil people. As the commander of the Great Tang's 100 Cavalry Department, it was naturally his duty to eliminate such evil people without any psychological burden or pressure. However, after hearing the words of the burly man surnamed Meng, he began to waver. Such a loyal and righteous man, especially one who had accomplished great feats for the Great Tang, should not be executed for being a rebel. The next morning, before the sun had even risen, the peak of the Snake Spirit Mountain and the base of the mountain to the north were bustling with activity. Everyone, get up! Focus! After breakfast, the army will set off. Once we take Chang'an City, we won't have to return to this damned place. Chang'an's delicacies, wine, and beauties are all yours to enjoy. The soldiers of the Heavenly Dragon Army and the members of the Dragon Sect were all roused from their dreams. The generals of the various camps were shuttling through the various tents, their voices incessantly berating and brainwashing. Reality proved that the brainwashing of the generals was very successful. Many of them were instantly energized when they heard that Chang'an's delicacies, wine, and beauties are all yours to enjoy. Early in the morning, all of them were brimming with energy and wanted nothing more than to charge into Chang'an City and fight to the death with the defenders. Since betraying the Imperial Court was unavoidable, they might as well defeat the Imperial Court and take over Chang'an. Perhaps they might even become nobles and generals. This was the mindset of the majority of the Dragon Sect members. At the start, when they learned that the Dragon Head of the Dragon Sect was attacking Chang'an, they had been terrified and uneasy. But after experiencing the high-pressure policies of the Dragon Head and the constant brainwashing, these people were no longer so resistant to betraying the Imperial Court. Rather than saying that their mentality had changed, it was more accurate to say that they had been forced into a corner. Previously, many of them had wanted to leave after learning that the Dragon Sect was going to betray the Imperial Court. But in the end, those people all had extremely tragic endings. This was also a very good warning for the rest of the Dragon Sect. Unable to escape the control of the dragon sect, coupled with the brainwashing of the generals, many people began to accept their fate. At the same time, they more or less held on to a sliver of hope. What if the dragon sect really took over Chang'an City? Then wouldn't they all become heroes of the dragon sect? Thinking of this, many of the dragon sect members couldn't help but feel their blood boiling. An hour later, the Heavenly Dragon Army and the dragon sect members gathered at the foot of Snake Spirit Mountain after breakfast. At this time, the sky was filled with dark clouds and it was drizzling. Iron Face and Dragon Head of the dragon sect came to the front of the army and the scene immediately quieted down. His eyes scanned the crowd before he finally opened his mouth and said, "People of the dragon sect, Taishang Laojun has been telling this seat in dreams recently. He told this seat that the current emperor killed his brother and imprisoned his father. He did not obtain the throne properly and will be punished by the heavens. And today, the retribution of the heavens will come true. So today, this seat will bring you to Chang'an City to see what kind of retribution Li Shimin will suffer. Since the current emperor is cruel and heartless, this seat will lead you to overthrow this rotten imperial court. With the help of the gods, the dragon sect will be invincible. After we take over Chang'an City, this seat will become the new emperor and you will become heroes of the founding of the empire. You will enjoy endless wealth, luxurious clothes, beautiful women, and Jade Lake holy water. This seat will let all of you enjoy 100 years of wealth without sickness or pain." The iron-masked man's words were a dream from a god, and it was also about fame and fortune. His words immediately ignited the hearts of the Heavenly Dragon Legion and the dragon sect. As soon as he finished speaking, a tsunami of cheers erupted from below. "Dragon sect will win! Dragon sect will win! Dragon sect will win!" The iron-masked man nodded in satisfaction. When the cheers died down, he pulled out his sword and shouted, "Army, move out! Attack Chang'an City!" "Yes, sir." 50,000 people answered in unison. The huge sound reverberated in the valley, causing the sky to change color. "General Luo, this battle is in your hands." The iron-masked man turned around and patted the young and robust general beside him as he said solemnly, "Let's go." "Don't worry, my lord. If the plan in Chang'an City goes smoothly, this general will definitely take down Chang'an City before noon." The young general cupped his fist respectfully. "Good. With General Luo's words, this seat can rest assured." The dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect laughed loudly. Chapter 1605. Why hasn't Chang'an City opened its gates today? Yes. I hunted a pheasant yesterday, and was planning to sell it in Chang'an City today. But who knew that the gates of Chang'an City were still closed? What should we do? If we wait until tomorrow, it will probably stink. My San Lang went into the city to sell eggs yesterday, and hasn't come back yet. When will the gates of Chang'an City open? Early in the morning, the 4 gates of Chang'an City were surrounded by many people who wanted to leave or enter the city. Seeing that the gates were still closed, the people could not help but discuss. Most of the people inside the gates entered the city yesterday morning, but the gates were suddenly closed. They could not leave the city in time, and could only stay in the city for the night. Most of the people outside the city were the relatives of these people. Because they were worried about them, they came to Chang'an City early in the morning to take a look. Marquis. According to the report of the spies, the rebel army of the dragon sect has left Snake Spirit Mountain and is heading towards Chang'an City. There are about 50,000 people. They will reach Chang'an City in about an hour. Li Zishuan woke up exceptionally early today. After breakfast, he went to the camp of the Right Guards. At this time, Lu Rengui hurriedly trotted over and bowed to Li Zishuan with cupped fist. More than 50,000 people? Hearing this, Li Zishuan's eyes flashed and then whispered softly, "It seems that Du Yi is telling the truth. In last night's interrogation, Du Yi not only told Li Zixuan about the development of the dragon sect in the past year, he also told him about the military strength of the dragon sect. So when he heard Lu Rengui say that the dragon sect's army had more than 50,000 people, Li Zixuan remembered Du Yi's confession last night. He thought to himself that since this monk's attitude was so sincere, should he let him live? Shaking his head, Li Zixuan threw away the messy thoughts in his mind. He looked at Lu Rengui and asked solemnly, "Have the guards been arranged for the 4 city gates?" Lu Rengui replied with cupped fists, "It is said that His Majesty issued a secret order early this morning, ordering Duke Wei to lead the left and right guards, left and right guards, left and right guards, and left and right guards to guard the 9 city gates in the east, west, and north of Chang'an City. Now, the guards of the 9 city gates have been replaced by the men arranged by Duke Wei. When the rebel army arrives, Duke Wei will lead the army to stop the rebels from attacking the city from the east, west, and north." Li Zixuan frowned. "Who will guard the south gate?" To be honest, the dragon sect would most likely attack from the south of Chang'an City, but Li Zixuan didn't arrange for the 3 city gates in the south. This made Li Zixuan puzzled. Lu Rengui's face turned serious. He cupped his fists and said, "Marquis, before you came, Supervisor Zhao came to pass on His Majesty's verbal order. Today, the defense of Chang'an City's south gate will be guarded by the left and right guards, and will be commanded by you, Marquis." "Let this Marquis command?" Li Zixuan's eyes widened. Even though he had just fought with the Tujue state preceptor in the north, that was only because of his own bravery. To have him command an army in battle, especially a battle to defend a city, to him this was the first time he had ever done it. "Yes, Marquis." Lu Rengui nodded his head with certainty. Li Zixuan opened his mouth with a helpless expression. But now that things had come to this, he could only accept his fate. Lu Rengui suddenly thought of something and continued, "That's right, Marquis. This morning, His Majesty also decreed that today's morning court assembly is temporarily cancelled due to his ill health. You don't have to rush to the palace to attend the morning court assembly." "There's such a thing?" Li Zixuan was stunned at first, then he suddenly realized, His Majesty is wise. This move can let those officials who colluded with the Dragon Sect lower their guard and help the Dragon Sect army outside the city. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, it would be difficult for these people to give themselves away. If Li Er had ordered Li Jing to lead the 6 guards to the various city towers early in the morning, it would create a sense of urgency that Chang'an City was about to be attacked by the enemy. In this way, those officials in King Shi's faction would definitely suspect that Li Er had already known that Dragon Sect was about to attack the city. In addition, if Li Er did not cancel the morning court assembly today, there would definitely be officials in the morning court who would ask him to give the order to lift the blockade of Chang'an City. At that time, he would be in a dilemma. So when Li Jing led the army to secretly take over the city defense, Li Er came to cancel the morning court assembly by claiming to be ill. Not only did this avoid the suspicions of some officials, it also gave those people a chance to collude with the Dragon Sect outside the city. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Tell the hidden sentries to be alert, don't let anyone discover them. Once there's a situation, there's no need to report it, just arrest them directly. Li Zixuan's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at Lu Rengui and said in a deep voice, "Since old Li Zixuan attached so much importance to those officials who might rebel, then he, Li Zixuan, had no reason to not attach importance to them." "Yes, Marquis." Lu Rengui cupped his fists and was about to turn and leave when Li Zixuan called out to him, "Hey! Wait!" Lu Rengui quickly stopped in his tracks, only to hear Li Zixuan ask again, "Are there many citizens outside the city gates waiting to leave or enter?" Lu Rengui was stunned for a moment before nodding. "That's right. This general went to the south gate an hour ago to patrol and saw many citizens surrounding the city gates." Li Zishuan pursed his lips and pondered for a moment before saying, "How about this? Send people to the city gates to disperse the citizens and tell them that the city gates will only open today. Tell them to return to their homes and don't waste any time at the city gates. Remember, no matter what method you use, you must drive the citizens back to their homes. But there is one rule: you must not harm the citizens." Once the 50,000 dragon sect troops arrive at Chang'an City, it would be too late for the commoners at the city gates to escape. Moreover, they would most likely be captured by the dragon sect to be used as meat shields. Li Zishuan knew that many people would be injured or even killed in this battle, but he wanted to do everything within his power to minimize unnecessary casualties. So what if he lied and deceived people? Open the city gates at midnight? Marquis, what if we fail to destroy Heavenly Dragon Sect before the end of the day? Although Lu Rengue understood Li Zishuan's intention, he was still worried. Li Zishuan said decisively, "There are no ifs. Do as I say. Before the Dragon Sect troops arrive at Chang'an City, evacuate the citizens outside the city gates as soon as possible. There must be no mistakes." Lu Rengue hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed. "This general obeys." Seeing that Li Zishuan had no other orders, Lu Rengue turned and left. "Marquis, head steward Zhao is here." As soon as Lu Rengue left, a soldier walked in and cupped his fists to Li Zishuan. Li Zishuan's eyes lit up. "Quick! Invite him in." Chapter 1606. Master, the Dragon Sect's army has arrived outside Chang'an City. The South City Gate is under martial law. The Marquis of Yong'an is personally leading the left and right guards to resist the Dragon Sect's army. Chonghua Square, west of Chang'an City. An old servant came to the study and bowed to a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes. The middle-aged man was slightly stunned when he heard this. He couldn't help but clench his fists behind his back. After a short pause, he turned to look at the old servant and sighed. "What will come will come. This day has finally come." The old servant hesitated for a moment and couldn't help but ask, "Master, do you really plan to?" Although he didn't finish his words, the middle-aged man knew what he wanted to express. Sigh. How could this old man not want to spend the rest of his life in peace? But the Crown Prince was a great benefactor to this old man. On the surface we were monarch and subject, but in secret we were best friends. This kindness is unforgettable even in death. In front of the Black Tortoise Gate, this old man had no power and could only watch as the Crown Prince was shot to death. Now that his descendants have sent people to find me, how can this old man stand by and watch? If this is really the case, how can this old man face the Crown Prince in the underworld after 100 years? After a long silence, the middle-aged man painfully closed his eyes and muttered to himself. When the old servant heard this, he couldn't help but fall silent. When he saw the middle-aged man raise his foot and intend to leave, he was still slightly unwilling and said, "Master, what if the Dragon Sect's army is defeated, you take Madam and young Master out of the city and escape?" Without waiting for the old servant to finish, the middle-aged man waved his hand and said. With that, he didn't stay any longer. He went directly to the door and pushed it open. "Master, you can't go out." The middle-aged man came out of the study and into the courtyard. Just as he was about to leave, a woman suddenly came out of the side courtyard and blocked his path. His Majesty ordered this old man to enter the palace to discuss matters. "Madam, what are you doing?" The middle-aged man's expression changed, but he quickly returned to normal. He frowned and asked in a deep voice, who knew that the woman wouldn't listen to a single word. She said anxiously, "Master, don't try to deceive me. I heard everything you said to the Heavenly Dragon Sect's Venerable Master. Normally, this concubine doesn't understand the important matters of those countries and doesn't dare to interrupt. But this time, this concubine has to advise Master. Master, King Shi is dead. No matter how good King Shi was to you back then, he's already dead. Do you really want to disregard the safety of our family for that groundless descendant of King Shi? Are you really willing to do that? The middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. He didn't expect that the conversation between Du Yi and him would be overheard by his wife. After a moment of silence, he said in a deep voice, "Madam, you don't understand. Today this old man must go. Get out of the way. As for the price, if the Heavenly Dragon sect is defeated, take him away from Chang and—" After saying that, he used his hand to push the woman away, intending to forcefully leave. "Master, you can't go. He's still young. Master, you can't do anything stupid." The woman didn't give up. She went forward and hugged the middle-aged man, crying. On the south gate tower of Chang'an City. At this time, Li Zixuan had already arrived, and Zhao Song came with him. Now, the number of gurus left in Chang'an City could be counted with one hand. Although Zhao Song had dropped a rank because of the compression of genuine qi last year, he was a veteran guru after all and quickly cultivated his realm back. This time, he accompanied Li Zixuan to guard the city. On the one hand, he helped Li Zixuan hold the line. On the other hand, he wanted to see with his own eyes which officials would come to the city to stir up trouble. Chapter 1607. On the city walls of Chang'an. The iron-masked man's words almost amused Li Zixuan. At this moment, Li Zixuan had every reason to suspect that the dragon head of the dragon sect had a screw loose in his head. He actually advised him, a marquis, to give up everything and join the dragon sect? Li Zixuan felt that even if he put aside loyalty and morality, even an idiot wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Why would I give up my free and unfettered life to become a rebel with you? You really think you're someone important? Huh? You're the dragon head of the dragon sect, right? You keep saying that His Majesty is cruel and merciless, provoking the wrath of the heavens and the resentment of the people. But what this marquis sees is that since His Majesty ascended the throne, the people have been getting better and better food. Where is the wrath of the heavens and the resentment of the people? You're lying with your eyes wide open. If you're not trying to bewitch the people, what else can you be? Li Zixuan looked at the iron-masked man and mocked mercilessly. As the dragon head of the dragon sect, you don't even dare to show your true face. What qualifications do you have to make these tens of thousands of people work for you? At this point, Li Zixuan looked at the ordinary people standing in front of the dragon sect troops and said in a very sincere tone, "Fellow villagers, touch your conscience and tell me, since His Majesty ascended the throne, haven't your days been getting better and better? Now that the world is peaceful and His Majesty loves the people like his own children, what reason do you have to not cherish such a prosperous Tang dynasty instead of rebelling with this sneaky person? Even if the dragon sect can really invade Chang'an, who can guarantee that this man who doesn't even have the courage to show his true face will be a wise ruler? Who can guarantee that he will be wiser than His Majesty? This marquis knows that most of you were bewitched by Du Yi to join Heavenly Dragon sect, but this marquis can tell you with certainty that Du Yi's reincarnation is a lie. His immortal arts are also a lie. As for the Jade Lake holy water that can cure all kinds of diseases and grant immortality after consuming it for a long time, it is also a lie. You want to pursue a high position in the Heavenly Dragon sect. No illness, no disaster, and even immortality, all of these are nothing but lies. All of you are just sacrificial pawns for this person to fight for the world. If you can repent in time and turn over a new leaf, it's still not too late. Shut up. Li Zixuan's provocation caused the Heavenly Dragon sect members to waver even more. The iron-masked man was completely enraged. 3 feet above your head, Marquis Yong, you're distorting black and white, disrespecting the gods, be careful not to suffer the wrath of the heavens. Also, my Heavenly Dragon sect's Jade Lake holy water can cure all diseases. This is obvious to all. Don't even think about smearing my Heavenly Dragon sect's name. Hearing this, many of the ordinary Heavenly Dragon sect members couldn't help nodding secretly, whispering to each other. Dragonhead is right. That day, I saw with my own eyes that Butcher Zhang from Stone Village, who often suffered from leg pain, immediately stopped hurting after drinking the Jasper Lake holy water. And Auntie Zhang from Liujia Village, I heard that her waist immediately stopped hurting after drinking the Jade Lake holy water. Sigh. I joined the Heavenly Dragon sect to get a bowl of Jade Lake holy water so I can bring it back for my mother. Feeling that the scales of victory were tilting towards the Heavenly Dragon sect, the iron-masked man couldn't help but reveal a smug smile. But Li Zixuan on the city gate tower was not the least bit flustered. He calmly said, "Men, bring up the Venerable Du Yi of the Heavenly Dragon sect." Hearing this, the iron-masked man, Zhang Liang, and General Luo all paled. The rest of the Heavenly Dragon sect members who didn't know the inside story looked curiously at the city gate tower, muttering to themselves, "Why is Du Yi in Chang and city, and even captured by Li Zixuan?" Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Du Yi was escorted to the city wall by 2 imperial guards under the lead of Zhao Song, who was shackled with iron shackles. The Heavenly Dragon sect's people at the bottom of the city could vaguely see Du Yi's shiny forehead. The iron-masked man and General Luo both had excellent eyesight. They quickly recognized that the monk on top of the city gate tower was indeed Du Yi. How is this possible? Is Du Yi really captured by the imperial court? As he gazed at Du Yi who stood on the city wall, tempestuous waves arose in the iron-masked man's heart. The plan that he'd once thought to be foolproof was now filled with flaws and had been destroyed by Li Zixuan. At this moment, the iron-masked man suddenly felt that he'd fallen into the trap set up by Li Zixuan. "Dragonhead, what should we do?" General Luo couldn't help but whisper. The iron-masked man was silent. Reason told him that now that the plan had failed, they should retreat in time. But he was very unwilling to return without success after so long of planning. Just as he was hesitating, Du Yi opened his mouth. Not only did he speak, but his voice was also very loud. It was so loud that it shook the heavens and the earth. This was because Li Zixuan had asked someone to give Du Yi a loudspeaker. It was the first-generation loudspeaker that Li Tai had developed in the Attack and Defense Department half a month ago. This poor monk is the Venerable Du Yi of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Everyone used to think that this poor monk knows magic and is the reincarnation of gods and Buddhas. In fact, those are all fake. Chapter 1608. What do I do? The dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect is very crafty. When he saw that the situation was bad, he immediately retreated with his army. Should I use this chance to capture him? But he also has that unknown General Luo at his side. What should I do? The rear army of the Heavenly Dragon sect had become the vanguard, and the vanguard had been sent to bring up the rear. The dragon head had personally led his army in retreat, and this made Li Junxian anxious. For some reason, he had wanted to seize the dragon head, but in the end, he hadn't put it into action. He didn't know how strong General Luo was, and he wasn't absolutely confident that he could capture the dragon head under his nose. Even though Li Junxian had been a member of the Celestial Dragon Army for a long time, he had never seen General Luo take action. The arrow that General Luo had fired at the city gate was clearly at the level of a grandmaster. Thus, Li Junxian did not believe that he could quickly capture the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect while under the protection of a grandmaster. Bong bong bong. Just when the Heavenly Dragon Army was preparing to retreat, the thundering of hooves came from the southern part of Chang'an. Li Junxian was elated. After hiding in the Heavenly Dragon sect for so long, he was well aware of its strength. He was certain that these soldiers were not here to reinforce the Heavenly Dragon sect. If he eliminated this possibility, then there was only one possibility. This army was from the imperial court. Li Junxian was happy, but the dragon head, Zhang Liang, and General Luo couldn't bring themselves to be happy. Not good. It's the Imperial Court's cavalry. General Luo grimaced, and then he hastily said, "Milord, take a group of elite soldiers and retreat from the east. This general will lead the rest to stop the Imperial Court's cavalry for you." The Imperial Court's cavalry? How could this be? The dragon head blurted out in disbelief. This god has been keeping an eye on the movements of the Imperial Court at the gates of Chang, and this entire time. No soldiers have left the city in the last 2 days. Where did these cavalry come from? It was precisely because there were no signs of the Imperial Court deploying troops recently that the iron-masked man dared to bring 50,000 men to attack the city. If the Imperial Court's army had been mobilized frequently in the past 2 days, it meant that the Imperial Court was aware of the Dragon Sect's plan. The iron-masked man would definitely cancel today's operation in advance, and not come to Chang'an City. Perhaps the troops of the Imperial Court stationed in other provinces and counties have arrived. General Luo's face turned ugly as he said, "My lord, now is not the time to discuss these issues. The most important thing right now is for you to lead a group of people to break out from the east. Leave this place to me to cover your retreat." General Luo, this general is willing to escort the dragon head away. At some point, Li Junxian had walked over, clasped his fist, and bowed. Li Junxian had not been standing very far from General Luo, so he had heard most of their conversation. The iron-masked man had finally separated from General Luo, so how could he not seize this chance? Thus, without any hesitation, he stepped forward and volunteered. General Luo immediately turned to Li Junxian and frowned. "You? If I remember correctly, you have only joined the Heavenly Dragon Army for less than a month, right? How can you bear such a great responsibility?" Li Junxian hadn't expected this man surnamed Luo to remember a minor character of the Heavenly Dragon sect. His mind turning, he hastily replied, his mind raced, and he hastily said, "General Luo, although this subordinate has not been a member of the Dragon sect for long, this subordinate is absolutely loyal to the Dragon Head and the Dragon sect. Venerable Du, he was coerced by the Imperial Court into maliciously slandering the Dragon sect in public. Others might believe it, but this subordinate will not. This subordinate's loyalty to the Dragon sect and the Dragon Head has never changed. Now that the Dragon Head is in danger, this subordinate will do everything in my power to escort the Dragon Head safely out of Chang'an. General Luo, please be at ease." "Good, good, good. Li Junxian, this god did not misjudge you." The Dragon Head looked at Li Junxian in praise. Li Junxian had been able to enter the Heavenly Dragon Army primarily because he had received the Dragon Head's favor. Now that the Heavenly Dragon sect was in danger, Li Junxian had remained unwavering in his loyalty. The steel-masked man naturally had nothing but praise for Li Junxian. Thus, he turned to General Luo and said, "General Luo, this god trusts in Li Junxian's loyalty. Rest assured and let Li Junxian lead a group of men to escort this god out." "But, no buts. General Luo, you only need to delay the Imperial Court's army for a few moments, and then immediately join up with this god. No matter what, you must live." At this point, the current situation did not allow them to hesitate too much. The iron-masked man instantly made a decision, but before he left, he still looked at General Luo with a solemn expression and said, "Don't worry. Okay." General Luo's eyes flashed with emotion, and then he solemnly returned the bow. "My lord, take care. This general will definitely return alive." After saying this, he bellowed, "Pan Feng, Zhao Ming, the two of you take 2,000 elites and accompany Li Junxian to escort the Dragon Head out of Chang'an. If anything goes wrong, I will chop off your heads." As soon as he finished speaking, 2 valiant generals immediately stepped forward, cupped their fists and said, "Yes, sir." "Ha! A trifling Heavenly Dragon sect dares to run rampant in Chang'an? Today, this old Qing will teach you how to behave." At this moment, the sound of hooves approached from the south, followed by the loud laughter of Qing Yaojin. General Luo grimaced and sternly ordered his subordinates, "Hurry and escort the dragon head out." Yes. Immediately, the two groups of elite soldiers brought the heavenly dragon sex dragon head and left towards the east. General Luo gripped his sword and loudly shouted, "Soldiers, hear my order. Follow this general to meet the enemy." Yes. The Sky Dragon army was indeed a well-trained army. The moment General Luo gave the order, more than 10,000 people responded in unison. Then, they pulled out their swords and got into formation. Under General Luo's lead, they charged towards the 10,000 light cavalry led by Qing Yaojin, Qin Qiong, and Yuqi Jingda. How dare you! Let this old Qing meet you! Qing Yaojin saw that the rebel army's general actually took the initiative to meet them, and he couldn't help but shout excitedly. He held his lance and charged forward. 10,000 against 18,000, but this old man didn't seem to have the slightest awareness that he was outnumbered. It was as if he had the absolute advantage, and he charged forward without any regard for his life. Seeing this, Qin Qiong panicked, but it was clearly impossible to stop Qing Yaojin at this time. He turned his head to Yuqi Jingda and urgently said, "Jingda, Heavenly Dragon Cult just sent out a group of people to the east. There's likely to be Heavenly Dragon Cult's dragon head there. You lead a group to pursue, I'll go help Jijia." At the end of the day, Qin Qiong was still a little worried about Qing Yaojin. However, he couldn't not send people to chase after the other group of people from Heavenly Dragon Sect. After thinking about it, he could only make this arrangement. Yuqi Gong also knew that the situation was urgent. Without hesitation, he wiped the rain off his face and replied, "All right. Then I'll lead 1,000 light cavalry to chase after the Heavenly Dragon Sect survivors. Shu Bao, you and Jijia must be careful. And you don't have to worry about this side." Qin Qiong nodded. "Wu Dachuan, count 1,000 men and follow this general." With that, Yuqi Jingda called out to his men, and the 1,000 light cavalry immediately turned and galloped in the direction of the Heavenly Dragon Sect's dragon head. "All generals listen to my order. Follow this general to kill. Don't let a single one escape." Qin Qiong held a golden mace and urged his horse to lead the remaining 1,000 light cavalry to support Qing Yaojin. At this moment, Qing Yaojin and General Luo were already fighting. The two of them tested each other's strength and found that they were evenly matched. At this time, Qing Yaojin's lance smashed into General Luo's sword, but the latter's majestic Xinqi directly shook him away. Qing Yaojin stabilized himself and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "Hey, Junior, you have such good kung fu. Who are you? Who is your teacher?" It was no wonder that old Qing was surprised. The young general in front of him was no more than 20 years old, but his martial arts had reached the Grandmaster realm. Other than Li Zishuan, this was probably the youngest Grandmaster realm martial artist in the entire Tang Dynasty. What surprised Qing Yaojin even more was that not only was this young general's realm high, his swordsmanship was also quite fierce. Yes, fierce, bold, simple, and efficient. It had the style of the army's swordsmanship. "I'm just a nobody, there's no need for Duke Lu to worry about me." A trace of hatred flashed in General Luo's eyes. He said coldly and directly raised his sword to slash at Qing Yaojin. "Hey, I, old Qing, saw that you were a promising talent and wanted to persuade you to submit to the imperial court, but you really don't know what's good for you. Since that's the case, I, old Qing, will teach you how to respect your elders." When Qing Yaojin saw that this young general's martial arts were outstanding, he was very fond of him. However, the other party did not appreciate his kindness at all. Qing Yaojin could not help but be furious. Not everyone had the qualifications to be treated coldly by him. After saying that, Qing Yaojin waved his lance and swung it at General Luo. "Jijia, this old man will help you." At this moment, Qin Qiong came over on his horse, wanting to join forces with Qing Yaojin to fight against General Luo. Qing Yaojin's stubborn temper had already risen. When he heard Qin Qiong's voice, he loudly said, "Second brother, I don't need your help. Let me, old Qing, deal with him alone." As they spoke, the two of them had already clashed. Hearing this, Qin Qiong hurriedly reined in his horse, but he felt helpless. He knew that if he rashly joined the battle at this time, old Qing wouldn't really be angry at him, but he would definitely feel very uncomfortable. So at this moment, he could only deal with the surrounding dragon sect soldiers while paying attention to the battle. If Qing Yaojin's situation changed, he would be the first to go to his rescue. Chapter 1609. Qing Yaojin and General Luo were fighting fiercely, but in front of them, Li Zixuan's Wu Wei army and the 30,000 Heavenly Dragon sect disciples were fighting a one-sided battle. These 30,000 people were just ordinary people. They had not received any formal training after joining the Heavenly Dragon sect. When they met the well-equipped and well-trained elite soldiers, the 30,000 people instantly showed signs of defeat. Of course, their lack of combat strength was one of the reasons. However, the more important reason was that after listening to Du Yi expose the Heavenly Dragon sect's deception and conspiracy, most of the people no longer had any thoughts of resisting. When the two sides clashed, countless people dropped their weapons and directly knelt on the ground to surrender. The elites of the Heavenly Dragon sect, who were supervising the battle among the commoners, saw that there were people who dared to surrender without a fight. They went forward to teach them a lesson and wanted to make an example out of them. However, their actions aroused public anger. After all, there were only a few hundred of them. The 30,000 commoners turned around and attacked the elites of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Not long after, the Heavenly Dragon sect elites who were supervising the battle were all beaten to the ground. Some were dead, some were seriously injured, and there was not even a light injury. Those who abandon the dark and join the light will be punished lightly. Those who resist will be killed without mercy. The Heavenly Dragon sect elites' shouts could be heard everywhere on the battlefield. Under the deterrence of absolute force, the 30,000 disheartened Heavenly Dragon sect members dropped their weapons one by one and knelt on the ground to surrender. Soon, a large number of people on the battlefield were kneeling. Not far away, General Luo, who was fighting with Qing Yaojin, could not help but feel anxious when he saw this scene. However, it was useless to be anxious. Although Qing Yaojin's martial realm was on par with his, in terms of battle experience, Qing Yaojin was undoubtedly far ahead of him. At this time, there was no way for him to quickly end the battle, let alone leave. Therefore, he could only watch as Li Zixuan absorbed the 30,000 Heavenly Dragon sect members. "Your Majesty, please slow down." Outside Chang'an City, the three sides were fighting fiercely. Inside Chang'an City, there was a group of people who happened to be near the city walls. The leader was Li Er. Behind him were all the civil and military officials of the imperial court. Earlier, when the Heavenly Dragon sect had surrounded Chang'an City, the civil and military officials of Chang'an City had all gone to the imperial palace to request Li Er, who was ill, to immediately convene the morning court. Naturally, the officials did not know that Li Er was deliberately pretending to be ill this time to make the old officials in Chang'an City lower their guard and have time to secretly communicate with the rebel army outside Chang'an City. After hearing the request of the officials to immediately convene the morning court, Li Er did not decline. After all, Chang'an City was surrounded by the rebel army. If he hid in the harem, it would not be justifiable. After pretending to ask the officials about the current situation in Chang'an City, he directly led the officials directly led the officials. He directly leading the officials directly, he led the officials directly to the south gate. Cities. Under the guidance of a eunuch and a city gate officer, Li Er and the officials of the imperial court ascended the city tower one by one. What they saw was the scene of 30,000 Heavenly Dragon sect members kneeling and surrendering. Fang Xianling could not help but exclaim, "What's going on? I heard that the rebel army had aggressively surrounded Chang'an City, but why are all the people of the Heavenly Dragon sect surrendering now?" It was not that Fang Xianling was making a fuss over nothing. The main thing was that when the Heavenly Dragon sect troops arrived at Chang'an City, the people of Chang'an City suddenly fell into extreme panic. Many people described the soldiers of the Heavenly Dragon sect as 3 heads and 6 arms, ferocious monsters. Moreover, the people of Chang'an City worshipped the 50,000 rebels as 200 to 300,000. It was as if Chang'an City could be breached by the rebel army at any time. Fang Xianling and the other core officials of the empire could not wait to bring the officials to the imperial palace for an audience after hearing the rumors in the city. However, when the group of people arrived at the city wall from afar, they discovered that the situation was completely different from what the commoners had described. Other than Qing Yaojin's battlefield being a little anxious, Li Zishuan's side was completely one-sided. How did this look like Chang'an City was about to be breached? Instead, it looked more like the Heavenly Dragon sect was ambushed by the imperial court. Li Er sneered. The existence of the Heavenly Dragon sect was originally a scam. Now that the scam has been exposed, the deceived people are naturally unwilling to serve the Heavenly Dragon sect. The ones who are still stubbornly resisting are the troops that the Heavenly Dragon sect has cultivated over the years. They are called the Heavenly Dragon Army and followed the head of the Heavenly Dragon sect from Qingzhou. Your Majesty, please look, there are 2 more troops on the east side. The officials were naturally shocked by Li Er's ability to predict the future, but that did not include Li Jing. He was one of the few people who knew about the entire incident. At this moment, he saw 2 armies chasing and fighting on the eastern side of the fork, so he could not help but remind them. Li Er's gaze focused and shifted to the east side of Chang'an City. At this time, the general who led Li Er to the city wall explained, "Your Majesty, after the Marquis of Yong, used the Heavenly Dragon sect's Venerable Du Yi to expose all of the Heavenly Dragon sect's schemes, the head of the Heavenly Dragon sect knew that there was no hope of attacking the city. When he saw Marquis open the city to fight, he directly led 2,000 people to the east, leaving the rest of the Heavenly Dragon sect's members and troops to cover the rear. When General Yuqi saw this, he directly led 1,000 light cavalry to chase after them." "I see." Li Er nodded and ordered, "Duan Zhishuan, I order you to immediately lead 1,000 black armored troops out of the city to support Yuqi Jingda. Remember, you must capture the head of the Heavenly Dragon sect alive. I want to see who he is." Duan Zhishuan cupped his fists and accepted the order. This general obeys. With that, he hurriedly turned and ran down the city tower. A moment later, a heavily armored army rushed out of Chang'an City and headed east. Wei Zheng's face was gloomy. In truth, he had already guessed the identity of the head of the Heavenly Dragon sect. It was because of this that he was so depressed these days. "Bring me the binoculars," Li Er ordered at this time. Yes. Not long after, a eunuch handed over a pair of binoculars. Li Er reached out and received it. He then placed it in front of his eyes and looked at Qing Yaojin and another young general who were fighting outside the city. After watching for a while, Li Er put down the binoculars and said with a strange expression, "That young general from the Heavenly Dragon sect has very good martial arts. He can actually fight Qing Jijia to a standstill. This kind of person is definitely not a nobody. Auxiliary machine, come take a look." Li Er was not worried about the battle outside the city at all. Under normal circumstances, as long as there was no internal strife in Chang'an City, it would be wishful thinking for the enemy to attack the city from the outside. The current Tang Dynasty was not the Tang Dynasty of the 9 years of Wuda. Not anyone had the qualifications to besiege the city and make Li Er sign the Wei River Alliance. After all the hidden dangers in Chang, An city were discovered and eliminated, this was a battle where the disparity in strength was great. Compared to the outcome, Li Er was more concerned about the identity of the head of the Heavenly Dragon sect and its core members. This old subject obeys the decree. Zhang Sun Wuji's heart moved. He took the binoculars and looked at the battlefield in the south. With one look, he was shocked. How is this possible? How can it be him? Chapter 16:10. Big Brother Meng, I'm sorry. My name is not Li Junxian. I am the Marshal of the Great Tang's 100 Cavalry Department, Li Junxian. In the eastern part of Chang'an, Li Junxian was holding the dragon head by the shoulder and holding his sword to his neck. Upon hearing Meng Wuchang's question, he turned around and apologetically said, I'm sorry. Marshal of the 100 Cavalry Department, Li Junxian. Meng Wuchang was dumbfounded. The dragon head was also dumbfounded. The surrounding celestial dragon army soldiers were also dumbfounded. None of them had imagined that the Marshal of the 100 Cavalry Department would infiltrate the Celestial Dragon sect and become a member of the Earth Emanations Battalion. This was simply too absurd. Bastard! To think that this god valued you so highly. You're actually a spy sent by the Imperial Court. Someone! Hurry and kill this brat! The dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect was so angry that he trembled all over and roared. Li Juanxian's face chilled as he pressed his sword to the dragon head's neck and shouted, None of you are allowed to come over. If anyone dares to take a single step forward, your dragon head will die. The restless soldiers of the Celestial Dragon Army calmed down once more. The soldiers of the Imperial Court that had been besieging the dragon head used this chance to surround Li Junxian and the dragon head. Yuqi Jingda looked over in delight. So it was Marshal Li? Why are you in the Celestial Dragon sect? Oh, this old man remembers now. You haven't appeared in Chang'an for quite some time. Presumably, His Majesty sent you to infiltrate the Celestial Dragon sect, right? Haha. His Majesty is truly wise, otherwise, the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect might have escaped today. Kill! Hurry and kill Li Junxian. Li Junxian was just about to speak with Yuqi Jingda when the dragon head in his hand began to madly shout, All generals, hear my order! Kill Li Junxian! Don't be threatened by him. We're now in the hands of the Imperial Court, and we're all dead. Hurry and kill Li Junxian. The dragon head finally understood. Since Li Er had sent Li Junxian to infiltrate the Celestial Dragon sect as a spy, there was a high chance that Li Junxian had been the one who had leaked out the Celestial Dragon sect's plans. Otherwise, how could his flawless plans have been foiled by the Imperial Court? Hey! The dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect felt endless hatred for Li Junxian. If not for Li Junxian, Chang'an might have fallen into internal strife, and he might have led the Celestial Dragon Army into Chang'an. Thus, the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect only wanted to kill Li Junxian. He couldn't care less about anything else. Everyone stop. Don't listen to his nonsense. Li Junxian took the dragon head and retreated a few steps until he was at a safe distance. He then turned to the less than 1,000 soldiers of the Heavenly Dragon Army and Meng Wuchang. Big Brother Meng, and my brothers of the Celestial Dragon Army, I, Li Junxian, know that the vast majority of you have received the grace of the Dragon sect, so you are willing to die for your dragon head. But have you ever wondered if your dragon head harbored ill intentions when he granted you this grace? You all heard what Dewey said on the walls. Not only does the dragon sect not have any reincarnated gods, the Jade Lake sacred water you gave your family members is not a cure for all illnesses, as the rumors say. Drinking too much of the Jade Lake sacred water will even cause one to become dependent on it and gradually eat away at one's body. The dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect clearly knew that the Jade Lake sacred water could not cure all illnesses and was even harmful to the body. So why did he give it to you? This means that from the moment he granted you this grace, he wanted to use you. You were just pawns in his plot to usurp the throne, so why continue to resist? There are many ways to repay favors in this world, and this sort of favor is not worth your life. I've already captured the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon Sect, and the rest of the Heavenly Dragon Sect has been wiped out by the Imperial Court. Rather than serving this dragon head, it would be better for you to lay down your weapons and join the light. Perhaps His Majesty will spare you. Even if you don't think about yourselves, you should think about your families. They might still be waiting for you to return. Li Juanxian's words caused these loyal soldiers of the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon Sect to waver. The word family was perhaps the softest part of their hearts. Family? Meng Wuchang stood in a daze, his heart filled with bitterness. After a long while, he couldn't help but burst into tears. I, Meng Wuchang, have let down my fellow villagers and family. Now that I've become a rebel of the Heavenly Dragon Sect, how can I face my elders and family? After saying this, he raised the Mo saber in his hand and slashed at his own neck. Big Brother Meng. Li Junxian panicked and wanted to go over and cut him, but he couldn't free himself, so he could only watch as Meng Wuchang killed himself. Clang! Just when the Mo saber was about to cut Meng Wuchang's neck, a lance howled through the air and struck the hilt of the saber in Meng Wuchang's right hand. With a metallic clang, the saber in Meng Wuchang's hand clattered to the ground. Chapter 16:11. Lu Guogong, stop. This person is. The Sky Dragon Legion's main general had committed suicide, and the rest of the soldiers had lost their leader. They were in a mess, but they were quickly subdued by the left and right guards, as well as the 10,000 elite cavalry that Qin Xiong had brought back. Just then, there was a hurried shout from outside the crowd. An official in purple rushed in, but before he could finish his sentence, he saw General Luo lying on the ground with his neck dyed red. His voice stopped abruptly. The person he was looking for was obviously dead. This Lu Guogong, you killed him? The purple-robed official looked at General Luo on the ground, then looked at Cheng Yaojin and asked in disbelief. Zhao Guogong, this has nothing to do with me. That's right, this purple-robed official was Zhang Sun Wuji. Previously, when Zhang Sun Wuji saw the appearance of this young general, he quickly excused himself from Li Er and quickly ran down the city gate tower. Hearing the reproach in Zhang Sun Wuji's words, Cheng Yaojin rubbed his nose and quickly waved his hand. This old man originally wanted to capture him alive and hand him over to His Majesty to deal with him personally. However, this junior was bent on seeking death and ran into this old Cheng's lance. This old man was caught off guard, so this junior committed suicide. Sigh. What a pity. Although Cheng Yaojin was dissatisfied with the young general's arrogant attitude, he had to admit that this young general was a promising talent. He had reached the Grandmaster realm at such a young age. Although his future achievements couldn't be compared to Li Zishuan, he definitely wouldn't be too bad. It was indeed a pity for such a young talent to die just like that. After a moment of frustration, Cheng Yaojin suddenly came back to his senses. He looked at Zhang Sun Wuji and asked curiously, Zhao Guogong, why are you so concerned about this young man? Could it be that you know him? At this moment, Cheng Yaojin realized that something was wrong. If the young general on the ground was really Zhang Sun Wuji's relative, then he had completely offended Zhang Sun Wuji. Although Cheng Yaojin wasn't afraid of Zhang Sun Wuji, being watched by an old fox every day was quite uncomfortable. You! Zhang Sun Wuji pointed at Cheng Yaojin and sighed. Ai. Wasn't this young General Luo Yi's son, Luo Cheng? Forget it. Let's bring the Heavenly Dragon Sect rebels back to the city first. We'll talk about this later. Luo Cheng. When Li Zishuan heard this, he couldn't help but feel shocked. In his previous life, he had read The Legend of the Heroes of Sui and Tang Dynasties a few times. Naturally, he knew about Luo Cheng. However, He didn't expect that such a young hero would become a rebel and end up like this. It seemed that because of his appearance, a lot of history had quietly changed. Actually, there was no such person as Luo Qing in the official history. He only existed in novels. What? Is this kid Luo Yi's son? Qing Yaojin's eyes widened in shock. But Zhangsun Wuji had already turned and walked far away. He naturally wouldn't answer Qing Yaojin's question. Qin Qiong, who was by the side, sighed and said, "Sigh. Last year, Luo Yi went astray and rebelled. I didn't expect that his son would end up like him. What a sin." When Wagong village was at its peak, Qin Qiong, Qing Yaojin, and Luo Yi had all worked under Li Mi. Moreover, the three of them had a relatively good relationship. Now that Luo Yi's son had died under Qing Yaojin's lance, Qin Qiong and Qing Yaojin couldn't help but sigh. Let's go. Now that the Heavenly Dragon sect has been destroyed, it can be considered to have solved a problem for the imperial court. Let's return to the palace and report. After a moment of silence, Qin Qiong patted Qing Yaojin's shoulder and said. Qing Yaojin naturally didn't reject. He nodded and let people count the troops and prisoners. Then, he followed Qin Qiong and Qing Yaojin back to Chang'an City. Creak creak. Accompanied by the ear-piercing sound of metal rubbing against each other, Chang'an City's illustrious Virtue Gate was opened once again. Unlike the previous two times, it didn't close immediately after opening. The other city gates also opened. This meant that Chang'an City, which had been sealed for more than a day, was now officially unsealed. The city gates are open. This time, there's no army coming out of the city, but the city gates are open. The Imperial Court's army has entered the city. They must have won a great battle. Could it be that the Heavenly Dragon sect has been destroyed? Haha. That's great. That's great. Chapter 1612. Kneel. Inside Taiji Palace, Yuqi Jingde and Duan Zhixuan carried in a man wearing a metal mask. When they reached the front of the officials, Yuqi Jingde's face darkened as he shouted at the masked man, who was the dragon head of the dragon sect. Although under normal circumstances, kneeling was not popular in this era, the dragon head of the dragon sect, as the general of the defeated army, should kneel after seeing Li Er. There was absolutely nothing wrong with this. Humph! How can a traitor who killed his brother and imprisoned his father be worthy of this seat kneeling? Don't even think about it. The masked man glared at Li Er, his eyes flashing with a cold light as he stubbornly said. The moment these words came out, the faces of the officials changed. Ever since Li Er ascended the throne, no official had ever dared to say such words. Even if someone was tired of living, they would not choose such a method to court death. But who would have thought that these words that even Wei Yanzi did not dare to say, would actually come out of the mouth of a rebel army's leader today? The hall suddenly fell into a deathly silence. Li Er narrowed his eyes as he stared fixedly at the dragon head of the dragon sect. There was no joy or anger on his face, and no one knew what he was thinking. After a long while, he finally spoke. Humph! Are you deliberately provoking this seat? Seeking a quick death? The dragon head of the dragon sect trembled, but he neither admitted nor denied it. Li Er's eyes narrowed as he ordered in a deep voice, Jingde, take off his mask. Let this seat and the officials see who he really is. Although Yuqi Jingde and Duan Zhixuan had captured the dragon head of the dragon sect, no one dared to take off his mask. Both of them were old officials who had experienced the ups and downs of officialdom for many years. How could they not notice the abnormality behind the dragon sect's rebellion? Therefore, in their view, the identity of the dragon head of the dragon sect could only be revealed by Li Er himself. On the other hand, not taking off the mask on the spot was to preserve the original appearance of the criminal to the greatest extent to avoid suspicion of being swapped. Yes, Your Majesty! Yuqi Jingde cupped his fists and accepted the order. He then turned around and looked at the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect, preparing to remove the iron mask on his face. At this moment, the latter began to struggle violently. Li Shimin, the winner is king while the loser is a bandit. If you want to kill me or cut me up, do as you please. You humiliated me like this, what kind of hero are you? Hearing the heavenly dragon sex dragon head's words becoming more and more excessive, Yuchi Jingda hurriedly sped up, reaching out with lightning speed to pull off the latter's iron mask. Instantly, an excessively young and handsome face was exposed before everyone's eyes. Everyone's jaws dropped in shock, because no one had expected that the person behind all this rebellion would be so young. Judging from his appearance, he was at most 14 or 15 years old, right? He was even younger than the youngest person in the imperial court, Li Zishuan. Who are you? Where are you from? Li Er frowned and stared unblinkingly at the dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect. This person's appearance gave him a familiar feeling, but he couldn't put his finger on it for a moment. A moment later, he asked in a low voice. The dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect said angrily, "This seat said that if you want to kill me, then kill me, if you want to cut me up, then cut me up." When did the decisive Li Shimin become as wishy-washy as a woman? Despite being described as a woman, Li Er didn't show any anger on his face. He narrowed his eyes and suddenly turned to Wei Jing. "Wei Zhuocheng, tell me, who is this dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect?" Whoosh! As soon as Li Er's words fell, all the officials in Taiji Palace, whether intentionally or not, turned their gazes to Wei Jing. After all, almost everyone present was a wily old fox, who had experienced ups and downs for many years. For Li Er to personally call out Wei Jing in this situation, the meaning behind it was self-evident. As the person involved, Wei Jing couldn't help but tremble when he heard Li Er call out his name. At this moment, his face was full of contradiction and regret. Under Li Er's aggressive gaze, Wei Jing finally stepped forward and bowed. "Your Majesty, this old subject doesn't know the identity of the dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect, but since he has the King Aura token, he must have a lot to do with the King Aura." Boom! What? The dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect is actually related to the King Aura? King Aura token? How did Wei Xuanqing know that the dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect has the King Aura token? As soon as the two words King Aura came out, the Taiji Palace exploded. After all, only a few of them had secretly contacted Du Yi before. Most people didn't know that the heavenly dragon sect had set up so many schemes in Chang'an City, let alone that Du Yi was a civil and military official of Li Jianqing's faction in Chang'an City with the King Aura token. When the officials' discussion gradually died down, Li Er narrowed his eyes and asked indifferently, "Minister Wei, how did you know that the dragon head of the heavenly dragon sect has the King Aura token?" The atmosphere in the court suddenly froze. Wei Jing paused for a moment, bowed deeply, and said, "Your Majesty, this old subject is guilty." "What crime is Minister Wei guilty of?" Li Er asked knowingly. Wei Jing closed his eyes and said with a pained expression, "Your Majesty, the Venerable of the Heavenly Dragon sect had a secret meeting with this old man a few days ago with the King Aura token and asked this old man to make things convenient for the Heavenly Dragon sect in Chang'an City. Although this old subject flatly refused, I didn't report this matter to Your Majesty and almost caused Chang'an City to suffer a disaster. This old subject is guilty and I beg for death." After saying that, a turbid tear fell from the corner of Wei Jing's eye. Back then, he was one of Li Jianqing's top strategists. He had a very deep relationship with Li Jianqing. When Du Yi came to him with the King Aura token, he also hesitated. However, reason told him that the King Aura was already dead, and the Heavenly Dragon sect was just using the King Aura's name to stir up trouble in Chang'an and attract more believers. Therefore, Wei Jing mercilessly refused Du Yi's request. But Wei Jing also didn't choose to report this matter to Li Er. First, he felt that there was no need. He didn't believe that the Heavenly Dragon sect could pose a threat to the powerful imperial court. Second, he guessed that the person behind the Heavenly Dragon sect was related to Li Jianqing. Whenever possible, one should be lenient. Letting the Heavenly Dragon sect go could be considered repaying Li Jianqing's favor. Today, the Heavenly Dragon sect had taken the initiative to besiege Chang'an. Only now did Wei Zheng understand that his moment of soft-heartedness had led to a grave mistake and almost brought immeasurable losses to the great Tang. He, who had been upright all his life, had finally avenged himself with great difficulty, but it had resulted in such tragic consequences. At this moment, Wei Zheng felt that only death could atone for his sins. Li Er stared at Wei Zheng, his brow furrowed. He didn't say that he would punish Wei Zheng, but he also didn't say that he would let him go. Seeing this, the officials couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Because the more Li Er remained silent, the more likely Wei Zheng would be to die. Although Wei Zheng often liked to criticize the heavens, earth, and air, and almost everyone in the court was annoyed by him, but the officials in the hall asked themselves honestly. Wei Zheng had contributed a lot to the Great Tang. At the very least, when Li Er, as the emperor, did something inappropriate, Wei Zheng would replace them to criticize Li Er and regulate Li Er's behavior. If Wei Zheng wasn't there, then the next time Li Er did something foolish, these virtuous officials would have to reprimand and face Li Er's anger. Now that they saw that Wei Zheng might lose his life, the officials in the hall couldn't help but feel a trace of sympathy for the death of the rabbit. Your Majesty! Just as the atmosphere in the hall became more and more oppressive, Li Zixuan finally stood up. He bowed towards Li Er and said, Your Majesty, although Left Minister Wei is guilty, his crime definitely does not warrant death. If he knew in advance that the dragon sect would attack the city today, this official believes that he would have told Your Majesty about the Deuce secret meeting, no matter what. With bronze as a mirror, one can straighten one's clothes. With history as a mirror, one can know the rise and fall. With people as a mirror, one can know the gains and losses. Left Minister Wei is upright and plain-spoken. He is loyal to the Great Tang and is sincere to Your Majesty. He always dares to reprimand. Such a virtuous official is not only a role model for all the officials in the court, but also a mirror for Your Majesty. If Your Majesty kills Left Minister Wei today, it will be the same as destroying a mirror. In the future, it will be difficult to meet a mirror that can protect you. Your Majesty, please reconsider. Wei Zheng, who was already prepared to die, was surprised to see Li Zixuan pleading for him. But after listening to Li Zixuan's words, his face was filled with complex emotions. Li Er, who was sitting at the head of the table, couldn't help but recall Li Zixuan's words in his mind. With bronze as a mirror, one can straighten one's clothes. With history as a mirror, one can know the rise and fall. With people as a mirror, one can know the gains and losses. This sentence was inexplicably familiar to Li Er, but after thinking about it, he couldn't think of a reason and could only give up in the end. Isn't this nonsense? This sentence was said by him, of course he was familiar with it. According to the historical records, in the 17th year of Xinguan, Wei Zheng died of illness. Li Er couldn't help but cry bitterly and said to the people around him, If a man uses bronze as a mirror, one can straighten one's clothes. With history as a mirror, one can know the rise and fall. With people as a mirror, one can know the gains and losses. I have always protected these three mirrors to prevent myself from going overboard. Today, Wei Zheng has died, thus one mirror is gone. Humph! Wei Zhuqing, I'll put aside the matter of you concealing it for now. I'll deal with you later. In the end, Li Er let Wei Zheng go, although he didn't say it out loud. Wei Zheng was touched and said, Thank you, Your Majesty, for not killing me. Li Er snorted and then looked at another person in the hall. Wei Ting, do you know the identity of the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect? As soon as he finished speaking, an old and decrepit official stepped forward. Taking a closer look at his appearance, it was the old man who was about to open the city gates for the Heavenly Dragon sect, but in the end, he stopped at the precipice. Walking to the front of the officials, Wei Ting cupped his hands and said with a pained expression, "Your Majesty, this old minister also knows the crime of not reporting it. Please punish me." Li Er said indifferently, "First, tell me the identity of the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect. As for your crime of not reporting it, we'll deal with it later." Chapter 1613. In the Taiji Palace, the officials were still in shock from Li Qingzong smashing his head against the coiling dragon pillar. When they heard Li Er call out Wei Ting's name, they all focused their gazes on Wei Ting. Seeing Li Qingzong die in front of her with her own eyes, Wei Ting was in a state of extreme shock at this moment. Hearing Li Er call her, Wei Ting walked forward shakily and cupped her hands, replying to Your Majesty. This old subject had indeed guessed that the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect might be the son of King Shi. Because King Shi's token is so noble, it's impossible for it to wander among the common people for no reason other than King Shi's direct bloodline. But I didn't guess that the dragon head was Li Qingzong, let alone how he came back to life. I'm afraid I can only ask Princess Shi about this. Wei Ting was born in the Xiaoyao branch of the Wei family. She had a good relationship with the hidden crown Prince Li Jianqing when she was young. Emperor Gao pacified the capital and appointed Li Jianqing as the chancellor of the Longxi Duke residence. He moved the crown prince's left guard and inspected the crown prince's left guard. The hidden crown prince Li Jianqing was very lucky. In the 7th year of Wuda, because of the Yang Wengan incident, Shi Duyan and Wang He were exiled to Feng province. After the Xuanwu Gate incident, Tang Taizong entered the East Palace and was appointed as the Lord of the Ministry of Personnel. Li Er looked at Wei Ting. After confirming that she wasn't lying, he said, "Men, summon Zheng Guanyin." "Yes, sir." A small eunuch immediately went to carry out the order. Zheng Guanyin was born in the 19th year of Emperor Wen of Sui. In the 10th year, the 16-year-old Zheng Guanyin married Duke Tang's son, Li Jianqing. In the 5th month of the 2nd year of Yining, after the Tang Dynasty was established, Li Jianqing was made the crown prince, and Zheng Guanyin became the crown princess. Zheng Guanyin was in her youth and was extremely noble. She was close to the position of the empress, who knew that on the 4th day of the 6th month of the 9th year of Wuda, the Qin king Li Shimin suddenly started the Xuanwu Gate incident and killed Li Jianqing and his sons. In one day, Zheng Guanyin suffered a huge change. Her husband died, her sons died, and her family was wiped out. Zheng Guanyin was only 28 years old, and the oldest son was only 11 years old. After Li Jianqing's death, Madame Zheng spent her days mourning her late husband and raising her children. At this time, Zheng Guanyin was still living in the imperial palace. Therefore, not long after, a young eunuch came in with a woman with a weathered face but very regular facial features. Many officials looked at the woman and sighed. This woman was Li Jianqing's former wife, Zheng Guanyin. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Zheng Guanyin walked to the front of the officials and bowed. She said expressionlessly. Even though she hated the man in front of her, she knew that she couldn't do anything to him because he was the supreme being of the world. When she heard that Li Erchuan had come to the Taiji Palace, she was a little puzzled at first. However, she inadvertently saw the coiling dragon pillar on the right. Within Taiji Palace, the officials were still in shock when Li Qingzong killed himself on the coiling dragon pillar. When they heard Li Erchuan call out Wei Ting's name, they all focused their attention on Wei Ting. Seeing Li Qingzong die in front of her, Wei Ting was also in a state of extreme shock. Hearing Li Erchuan call her, Wei Ting walked forward shakily and cupped his hands. "Your Majesty, this old official did guess that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect might be the son of King Shi. Because King Shi's token is so noble, it can't be in the hands of the people for no reason except for the direct bloodline of King Shi. However, this old official never guessed that the dragon head of heavenly dragon sect was Li Qingzong, let alone how he came back to life. I'm afraid this matter can only be left to Princess Shi. Wei Ting was born in the Xiao Yao branch of the Wei family. When he was young, he had a good relationship with the hidden crown Prince Li Jianqing. When Emperor Gao pacified the capital, he appointed Li Jianqing of Longxi Manor as the chancellor. He moved the crown prince's left guard and inspected the crown prince's left guard. The hidden crown prince Li Jianqing was very lucky. In the 7th year of Wuda, because of Yang Wengan, He Duyan, and Wang He were exiled to Feng province. After the Xuanwu Gate incident, Tang Taizong entered the East Palace and was appointed as the Lord of the Ministry of Personnel. Li Erchuan looked at Wei Ting. After confirming that the other party wasn't lying, he said in a low voice, "Men, summon Jing Guanyin." "Yes, sir." A young eunuch immediately accepted the order and left. Jing Guanyin was born in the 19th year of Emperor Wen of Sui. In the 10th year of her career, the 16-year-old Jing Guanyin married Duke Tang's son, Li Jianqing. In the 5th month of the 2nd year of Yining, after the Tang Dynasty was established, Li Jianqing was made the crown prince, and Madame Zheng became the crown princess. Madame Zheng was in the prime of her youth and was extremely noble. She was close to the position of the empress, who knew that on the 4th day of the 6th month of the 9th year of Wuda, the Qin king Li Shimin suddenly started the Xuanwu Gate incident and killed Li Jianqing and his sons. In a day, Madame Zheng suffered a huge change. Her husband died, her sons died, and her family was wiped out. At that time, Madame Zheng was 28 years old. Her oldest son should be no more than 11 years old. After Li Jianqing's death, Madame Zheng mourned her late husband and raised her children. At this time, Zheng Guanyin was still living in the imperial palace. Therefore, not long after, a young eunuch came in with a woman with a weathered face but very regular facial features. Many officials looked at the woman and sighed. This woman was Li Jianqing's wife in the past, Zheng Guanyin. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Zheng Guanyin walked in front of the officials and bowed. She was expressionless. Although she hated the man in front of her, she knew in her heart that she couldn't do anything to him because he was the sovereign of the world. When she heard that Li Erchuan had sent her to Taiji Palace, she was indeed a little confused at first. However, she inadvertently saw the coiling dragon pillar in front of her right. The officials were still in shock when Li Qingzong killed himself on the coiling dragon pillar. When they heard Li Erchuan call out Wei Ting's name, they all focused their attention on Wei Ting. Seeing Li Qingzong die in front of her, Wei Ting was also in a state of extreme shock. Hearing Li Erchuan call her, Wei Ting walked forward shakily and cupped his hands. "Replying to Your Majesty, previously this old official had guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect might be the son of King Shi. Because King Shi's token is so noble, other than King Shi's direct descendant, it can't be lost among the common people for no reason. However, this old official had never guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect was Li Qingzong, let alone how he came back from the dead. I'm afraid this matter can only be left to Princess Shi." Wei Ting was born in the Xiao Yao branch of the Wei clan. When he was young, he had a good relationship with the hidden crown Prince Li Jianqing. When Emperor Gao pacified the capital, he appointed Li Jianqing of Longxi Manor as the chancellor. He moved the crown prince's left guard and inspected the crown prince's left guard. The hidden crown Prince Li Jianqing was very lucky. In the 7th year of Wuda, because of the Yang Wengan incident, He Duyan and Wang He were exiled to Peng Prefecture. After the Xuanwu Gate incident, Tang Taizong entered the East Palace and was appointed as the Lord of the Ministry of Personnel. Li Erchuan looked at Wei Ting steadily. After confirming that the other party was not lying, he said in a low voice, "Men, summon Jing Guanyin." "Yes." A small eunuch immediately received the order and left. Zheng Guanyin was born in the 19th year of Emperor Wen of Sui. In the 10th year of her career, the 16-year-old Zheng Guanyin married Duke Tang's son, Li Jianqing. In the 5th month of the 2nd year of Yining, after the Tang Dynasty was established, Li Jianqing was appointed as the crown prince, and Madame Zheng became the crown princess. Madame Zheng was in the prime of her youth and was extremely noble. She was very close to the position of the empress. Who knew that on the 4th day of the 6th month of the 9th year of Wuda, the Qin king Li Shimin suddenly started the Xuanwu Gate incident and killed Li Jianqing and his sons. In a day, Madame Zheng suffered a huge change. Her husband died, her sons died, and her family was wiped out. At that time, Madame Zheng was 28 years old, and the oldest of her sons should be no more than 11 years old. After Li Jianqing's death, Madame Zheng mourned her late husband and raised her children. At this time, Zheng Guanyin was still living in the imperial palace. Therefore, not long after, a young eunuch came in with a woman with a weathered face but very regular facial features. Many officials looked at the woman and sighed. This woman was Li Jianqing's wife in the past, Zheng Guanyin. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Walking in front of the officials, Zheng Guanyin bowed and said expressionlessly. Although she hated the man in front of her, she knew in her heart that she could not do anything to him because he was the supreme ruler of the world. This time, when she heard that Li Erchuan had sent her to Taiji Palace, she was indeed a little confused at first. However, she inadvertently saw the coiling dragon pillar in front of her right. The officials were still in shock when Li Qingzong killed himself on the coiling dragon pillar. When they heard Li Erchuan call out Wei Ting's name, they all focused their attention on Wei Ting. Seeing Li Qingzong die in front of her with her own eyes, Wei Ting was also in a state of extreme shock. Hearing Li Erchuan call her, Wei Ting walked forward shakily and cupped his hands. Replying to Your Majesty, previously this old official had indeed guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect might be the son of King Shi. Because of how noble King Shi's token is, other than King Shi's direct descendant, it is impossible for it to wander among the common people for no reason. However, this old official had never guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect was Li Qingzong, let alone how he came back from the dead. I'm afraid this matter can only be left to Princess Shi. Wei Ting was born in the Xiao Yao branch of the capital's Wei clan. When he was young, he had a good relationship with the hidden crown Prince Li Jianqing. When Emperor Gao pacified the capital, he appointed Li Jianqing of Longxi Gongfu as the chancellor. He moved the crown prince's left guard and inspected the crown prince's left guard. The hidden crown prince Li Jianqing was very lucky. In the 7th year of Wuda, because of the Yang Wengan incident, he, Du Yan, and Wang He were exiled to Pring Prefecture. After the Xuanwu Gate incident, Tang Taizong entered the East Palace and was appointed as the head of the Ministry of Personnel. Li Er looked at Wei Ting calmly. After confirming that the other party was not lying, he said in a low voice, "Men, summon Zheng Guanyin." "Yes, sir." A small eunuch immediately received the order and left. Zheng Guanyin was born in the 19th year of Emperor Wen of Sui. In the 10th year of her career, the 16-year-old Zheng Guanyin married the son of Duke Tang, Li Jianqing. In the 5th month of the 2nd year of Yining, after the Tang Dynasty was established, Li Jianqing was appointed as the crown prince, and Madame Zheng became the crown princess. Madame Zheng was in the prime of her youth and was extremely noble. She was very close to the position of the mother of the world. Who knew that on the 4th day of the 6th month of the 9th year of Wuda, trouble would arise. Qin King Li Shimin suddenly started the Xuanwu Gate incident and killed Li Jianqing and his sons. In a day, Madame Zheng suffered a huge change. Her husband died, her sons died, and her family was wiped out. At that time, Madame Zheng was 28 years old. Out of all the sons of Madame Zheng, the oldest one was only 11 years old. After Li Jianqing's death, Madame Zheng mourned her late husband and raised the children. At this time, Zheng Guanyin was still living in the imperial palace. Therefore, not long after, a young eunuch came in with a woman with a weathered face but very regular facial features. Many officials looked at the woman and sighed. This woman was Li Jianqing's wife in the past, Zheng Guanyin. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Walking in front of the officials, Zheng Guanyin bowed and said expressionlessly. Although she hated the man in front of her, she knew in her heart that she could not do anything to him. That was because the other party was the sovereign of the world. When she heard that Li Er had sent her to Taiji Palace, she was indeed a little puzzled at first. However, she inadvertently saw the coiling dragon pillar in the Taiji Palace. The officials were still in shock when Li Qingzong crashed his head into the coiling dragon pillar. When they heard Li Er call out Wei Ting's name, they all focused their attention on Wei Ting. Seeing Li Qingzong die in front of her with her own eyes, Wei Ting was in a state of extreme shock. Hearing Li Er call her, Wei Ting walked forward shakily and cupped his hands. "Replying to Your Majesty, previously this old official had indeed guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect might be the son of King Shi. Because King Shi's token is so noble, other than King Shi's direct descendant, it would not be lost among the common people for no reason. However, this old official had never guessed that the dragon head of Heavenly Dragon sect was Li Qingzong, let alone know how he came back from the dead. I'm afraid this matter can only be left to Princess Shi." Wei Ting was born in the Xiao Yao branch of the Wei family. When he was young, he had a good relationship with the hidden crown Prince Li Jianqing. When Emperor Gao pacified the capital, he appointed Li Jianqing of Longxi Gongfu as the chancellor. He moved the crown prince's left guard and inspected the crown prince's left guard. The hidden crown prince Li Jianqing was greatly favored. In the 7th year of Wuda, because of the Yang Wengan incident, he, Du Yan, and Wang He were exiled to Pring Prefecture. After the Xuanwu Gate incident, Tang Taizong entered the East Palace and was appointed as the Lord of the Ministry of Personnel. Li Er looked at Wei Ting. After confirming that the other party was not lying, he said in a low voice, "Men, summon Zheng Guanyin." "Yes, sir." A small eunuch immediately received the order and left. Zheng Guanyin was born in the 19th year of Emperor Wen of Sui. In the 10th year of her career, the 16-year-old Zheng Guanyin married Duke Tang's son, Li Jianqing. In the 5th month of the 2nd year of Yining, after the Tang Dynasty was established, Li Jianqing was appointed as the crown prince, and Madame Zheng became the crown princess. Madame Zheng was in the prime of her youth and was extremely noble. She was very close to the position of the empress, who knew that on the 4th day of the 6th month of the 9th year of Wuda, the Qin king Li Shimin suddenly started the Xuanwu Gate incident and killed Li Jianqing and his sons. In a day, Madame Zheng suffered a huge change. Her husband died, her sons died, and her family was wiped out. At that time, Madame Zheng was 28 years old. The oldest of her sons was no more than 11 years old. After Li Jianqing died, Madame Zheng mourned her late husband and took care of her children. At this time, Zheng Guanyin was still living in the palace. Therefore, not long after, the small eunuch brought a woman. Not long after, the small eunuch brought a woman with a face full of vicissitudes, but her facial features were especially good. Chapter 1614. Thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you, Your Majesty. Inside Taiji Palace, after hearing that Li Er was finally willing to let the dead Li Qingzong go, Zheng Guanyin hurriedly got up from the ground and knelt down in front of Li Er, kowtowing repeatedly to express her gratitude. Although Li Qingzong was not personally killed by Li Er, no matter what, Li Qingzong's death was related to Li Er. Now, Zheng Guanyin was kowtowing to the enemy who killed her husband and son. This scene was as ironic as it could be. But reality was so cruel. Today, if not for Li Zishuan pleading for her and her son, if not for Li Er's sudden benevolence, even if Li Qingzong died, he would have been buried in the belly of a dog. Now that she could protect Li Qingzong's body, Zheng Guanyin was already satisfied. She did not dare to have any other wishful thinking. "All right," You may leave. Li Er's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at Jing Guanyin and waved his hand. In any case, he was the emperor of a country and did not want to continue making things difficult for a woman, not to mention this woman was his sister-in-law. Thank you, Your Majesty. Jing Guanyin kowtowed heavily again and stood up. Just as she was about to turn and leave, she suddenly paused. After hesitating for a moment, she turned to Li Er and said, "Regarding Qingzong's matter, if Your Majesty wishes to know, I am willing to tell you the truth." Returning the favor. After Li Er compromised, Jing Guanyin also tactfully gave in. Of course, even if she did not say these things, Li Er could still find out if he wanted to. Hearing this, Li Er narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, "All right, say it." Initially, after knowing that the dragon head of the Heavenly Dragon sect was Li Qingzong, Li Er was indeed very curious and wanted to know how Li Qingzong, who had been dead for 8 years, could come back to life. However, after Jing Guanyin's crying in Taiji Palace, his curiosity was not as strong as before. But since Jing Guanyin was willing to tell the truth, Li Er felt that there was no harm in listening. Jing Guanyin pondered for a moment and then said slowly, "In the 3rd year and 6th month of Wuda, Qingzong was conferred the title of Taiyuan County Prince by the retired emperor. However, in the same year, Qingzong contracted a strange illness. Not only did he suffer from chest tightness and wheezing, but his eyes were also dull. His Highness Jianqing invited famous doctors to treat Qingzong on the surface, but he also sent people to search for Jianghu sorcerers. By chance, at that time, Long Shigong Fu's Chancellor Wei knew that we were looking for a Jianghu practitioner, so he recommended a Taoist named Yuan Tiangang to Qinxie and Jianqing. At that time, Chancellor Wei said that this Yuan Tiangang was not only proficient in metaphysics and physiognomy, he could predict the future and was also proficient in Taoist medical skills. Perhaps he could save Qingzong. Yuan Tiangang? Hearing this, Li Zixuan couldn't help but exclaim. Jing Guanyin was grateful that Li Zixuan had pleaded for mercy for the dead Li Qingzong, so she was not angry when Li Zixuan interrupted her. Instead, she nodded and explained, "That's right. That Taoist was called Yuan Tiangang. According to Chancellor Wei, at the end of the previous dynasty, when Yuan Tiangang first arrived in Luoyang, he settled down in Qinghua Square. At that time, his physiognomy predictions were already famous, and many people had secretly looked for him. One day, Du Yan, Wang Gui, and Chancellor Wei came to see Yuan Tiangang and asked him to read their fortune. Yuan Tiangang predicted that Du Yan would become famous throughout the world with his writings, that Wang Gui would become a 5th-rank general in less than 10 years, and that Wei Ting would become a military official with a face like a tiger. He also predicted that the 3 of them would be demoted after becoming officials, and that they would meet again at that time. Sure enough, in the 1st year of Wuda, Du Yan became a heavenly book scholar as an imperial censor. Wang Gui was recommended by Jianqing to become a 5th-rank crown prince, and Wei Ting became the left guard commander. All of Yuan Tiangong's predictions came true one by one, so Chancellor Wei recommended Yuan Tiangang to Qinxie and Jianqing. This Yuan Tiangang can really predict the future? Then what did he say to you? Li Er narrowed his eyes and couldn't help but become interested in this Yuan Tiangang whom he had never met before. Perhaps many people would find it unbelievable. Wasn't Li Chunfeng Yuan Tiangong's disciple? Why was Li Chunfeng doing better than Yuan Tiangang at this time? In fact, it was pure nonsense to say that Yuan Tiangang was Li Chunfeng's master. Li Chunfeng was interested in Taoism because of his father. Li Bo used to be a small official in the county government during the Sui dynasty. He was not successful because of his low rank, so he gave up his official position and became a Taoist priest. He was quite knowledgeable and called himself Huang Guanzi. He wrote Laozi, 10 volumes of local chronicles, and prose on astronomical elephants. Li Chunfeng, who was known as a prodigy since childhood, read a lot under the influence of his father. He was especially fond of astronomy, geography, Taoism, and the study of yin and yang. In the second year of Wuda, Li Chunfeng, who was 17 years old, returned to his hometown. He was recommended by Li Shimon's good friend, Lu Wenjing, to become a secretary in the army. From then on, Li Chunfeng began his official career. What about Yuan Tiangang? According to historical records, in the 6th year of Zhengguan, Li Er called back Du Yan, Wang Gui, and Wei Ting, who were exiled because of Crown Prince Li Jianqing. He learned from them that Yuan Tiangang was an unprecedented genius in Shu's divination, so he issued an edict to invite Yuan Tiangang to Chang'an. In other words, Yuan Tiangang began to enter the imperial court in the 6th year of Zhengguan, which was more than 10 years later than Li Chunfeng. At this time, in the hall, Zheng Guanyin answered truthfully. After Yuan Tiangang saw Chengzong, he said that my son's illness was easy to cure, but after the disease was cured, he would encounter a man-made disaster, and his life would be short. The only way to cure it was to let Chengzong fake his death, and then secretly send him overseas to cultivate Taoism and avoid disaster. He was never allowed to step into the Central Plains, or there would be a bloody disaster. At that time, Chenxian and Jianqing didn't believe Yuan Tiangong's words. However, Yuan Tiangong's prophecies about Du Yan, Wang Gui, and Chancellor Wei still rang in our ears. In addition, even the palace's imperial physicians were helpless against Chengzong's illness, yet Yuan Tiangang could easily cure Chengzong. We didn't dare to doubt his words. After thinking about it again and again, we decided to secretly send Chengzong to Qingzhou as Yuan Tiangang said, and let Chengzong go out to sea in Qingzhou. We also ordered the guards who took care of him to never let him return to the Central Plains. But who would have thought that man's plans were not as good as God's? Chengzong finally. In the end, Zheng Guanyin couldn't help crying in a low voice again. Hearing this, the officials in the hall couldn't help but be shocked. No one would have thought that Li Jianqing's eldest son didn't really die of illness, but came back to life by faking his death and was sent overseas to avoid disaster. Thinking of the change in the Xuanwu Gate 2 years ago, it seemed that Yuan Tiangong's prophecy about Li Chengzong was not false at all. If Li Jianqing and Zheng Guanyin hadn't sent Li Chengzong overseas, Li Chengzong would definitely have been like Li Chengqian's other 5 sons, dying under Li Er's sword in the 9th year of Wuda. Li Er's heart was also in turmoil. He wasn't surprised by the plan that Li Jianqing had arranged for Li Chengzong to fake his death. He was shocked by Yuan Tiangong's ability to predict good and bad luck. Think about it, if Yuan Tiangang had read Li Jianqing's fortune, would he have seen that Li Jianqing would suffer a bloody disaster in the 9th year of Wuda? If so, would the mutiny he started in the 9th year of Wuda still succeed? Fortune-tellers could predict good and bad luck, but they couldn't change history. But if fortune-tellers changed the fate of some key people, wouldn't that be the same as changing history? Thinking of this, at the same time that Li Er was shocked, he also felt a trace of lingering fear. At the same time, he also felt a trace of vigilance toward a Jianghu fortune-teller like Yuan Tiangang, who could predict good and bad luck in the future. He thought to himself that if such a person couldn't be used by him, it would be best to kill him. So that's how it is. I already know about this matter. You can leave. Although Li Chengzong had committed a heinous crime, he was also a member of the royal family anyway. I will let the Imperial Order Temple bury him as a prince. After a moment of silence, Li Er waved his hand and said to Zheng Guanyin. Things had developed to this point. Li Er was no longer concerned about Li Chengzong's affairs. On the contrary, he remembered the name Yuan Tiangang. After this matter, Li Er would definitely send someone to find Yuan Tiangang. Your Majesty, thank you for your kindness. The dead were dead, and the arm couldn't resist the thigh. For Zheng Guanyin, who had lost her husband and all her sons, not only did she not have the ability to take revenge, but she also didn't dare to have any unusual movements. It wasn't that she was afraid of death, but there were still people she cared about in this world, her 5 daughters. She wanted to raise all her 5 daughters and see them get married before she could leave with peace of mind. She couldn't bear to let her daughters lose their father and then their mother. After Zheng Guanyin expressed her gratitude, she got up and slowly left Taiji Palace. At this time, Li Er recovered from the matter of Li Qingzong. His tiger-like eyes focused, and he said in a deep voice, "Although Li Qingzong was the mastermind of this rebellion, there were many accomplices. As far as I know, from the 4th-rank officials in the imperial court, the 3rd-rank eunuchs in the imperial palace, the guards at the city gates, and the merchants, they more or less facilitated the dragon sect's attack on Chang'an City. This morning, when the dragon sect besieged the city, there were 18 courtiers who tried to lead their servants to open the city gates or create chaos in the city. There were also 24 guards who tried to bewitch the rest of the soldiers into a mutiny. Unfortunately, I didn't let these people get what they wanted. Before they started the rebellion, they were all captured by the cavalry and the soldiers of the left and right guard. They are now all locked up in the Supreme Court's death row prison. I have said before, meritorious deeds should be rewarded and wrongdoings should be punished. These people colluded with the rebels and tried to subvert the country. They are guilty of the most heinous crimes. Kill them all. None. Amnesty. Zhao Song, read out the list of criminals to the officials." It was said that being in the king's company was like being in the company of a tiger. Just a moment ago, Li Er was like a sharp sword with a restrained edge. At this moment, this sharp sword's edge was exposed. The sword's edge was pointed directly at the officials and generals who had provided assistance to the rebels in this rebellion. The imperial court fell into a dead silence. Only now did the officials know why there were so many empty seats in the imperial court today. It turned out that those people were all sent to the death row prison by Li Er. Logically speaking, in a time of prosperity, a prison was absolutely not advisable. Especially when so many courtiers were arrested at once, it was bound to cause a great commotion. Usually, when faced with such a situation, the officials would try their best to persuade the emperor to think twice before acting. But this time, no one stood up to dissuade the emperor because this matter involved the emperor and rebellion. Moreover, from what Li Er said, those arrested officials were all caught red-handed. There was no room for quibbling and escape punishment. There was only the death penalty. "Yes, sir." Zhao Song bowed and accepted the order. Then, he turned around and took out a roll of silk from his sleeve. He read out loud, "After investigation, the Imperial Ancestral Temple Supervisor in Dezhong, the Yellow Door Assistant Minister Shen Wenhua, the Imperial Magistrate Junior Overseer Hong Xing, the Imperial Censor Assistant Minister Qiu Jianming, the Imperial Censor Xian Mu." Every time Zhao Song read out a name, the hearts of the officials could not help but tremble. After reading out more than 40 names, it finally came to an end. Before the officials could even breathe a sigh of relief, Zhao Song's next sentence made their hearts sink. "The above officials and generals, when the rebels besieged the city, instigated the people in the city, created chaos, and attempted to open the city gates for the rebels. They did not care about the safety of the country and the people. Their crimes are not punishable by death. Tomorrow at noon, they will all be beheaded in public at the entrance of the Western Market. By the Emperor." More than 40 officials and generals were all killed by Li Er in one go. This was probably the bloodiest purge of the officials in the Tang Dynasty since the Xuanwu Gate incident. "Your Majesty is wise." After a moment of silence, the officials cupped their hands and said in unison, "Under such circumstances, no one was willing to stand up and plead for mercy for those traitors. Even Fang Xianling, a good old man in the imperial court, did not raise any objections. Because those officials who colluded with the dragon sect and intended to rebel against the imperial court could not be absolved." Li Er nodded and turned his gaze to Wei Zheng and Wei Ting. After a moment of silence, he said, Wei Zheng, Wei Ting, Wang Gui, although the three of you did not participate in the rebellion of the dragon sect, you were suspected of knowing something but did not report it. Seeing that you have devoted yourself wholeheartedly to the country and the people, and have contributed a lot, I can spare you from death, but you cannot escape punishment. Therefore, I sentence each of you to receive 10 strokes of the cane, a demotion of 1 rank, a month of seclusion, and 3 years of salary forfeiture. Are the three of you sincerely convinced? According to Li Er's original intention, the lightest punishment for Wei Zheng, Wei Ting, and Wang Bei, who knew about the possible relationship between the dragon sect and King Shi, was to be stripped of their official positions. After all, this time when the dragon sect attacked Chang'an City, if it wasn't for Li Zishuan who coincidentally solved the crisis, Chang'an City would be in big trouble. At that time, the losses of the imperial court would be incalculable. But at the end of the day, it was still Li Zishuan's pleading that had been effective. Since Li Er wanted to be the sage monarch of his generation, he needed virtuous ministers like Wei Zheng, Wei Ting, and Wang Gui. Therefore, after careful consideration, Li Er chose to give Wei Zheng, Wei Ting, and Wang Gui a lighter punishment. Wei Zheng, Wei Ting, and Wang Gui stepped forward and bowed in shame. We are sincerely convinced. Thank your Majesty for your mercy. Although 10 strokes of the cane and a demotion of 1 rank was a more serious punishment, compared to the mistakes they had made, it was considered light. Therefore, the three of them were grateful to Li Er. However, after Wei Zheng shed tears of gratitude, he began to feel bitter in his heart. 3 years of no salary, how was he going to live? In the future, not to mention drinking wine, he was afraid that he would not even be able to eat at home. Chapter 16:15. This time, the dragon sect secretly used the name of King Shi to win over many officials and generals, nearly causing a huge crisis in Chang'an City. Some people are loyal to the dragon sect, but others are loyal to the imperial court. Those who should be punished have been punished. Next, this emperor will reward them according to their merits. Imperial Palace, Taiji Palace. Li Er used an iron-blooded method to deal with the criminals involved in the Heavenly Dragon Sect case. Those who deserved to be killed were killed, and those who deserved to be punished were punished. Li Er swept a dignified gaze over all the officials present, and then said in a deep voice. Everyone's heart trembled as their gazes focused on Li Zishuan. Even the most ill-informed officials knew that Li Zishuan had contributed greatly in this war. When Li Er led the officials to the city gates, Li Zishuan was leading the guard army to recruit the 30,000 members of the dragon sect. If one were to say that Li Zishuan did not contribute to this war, even a ghost would not believe it. Of course, in the hearts of insiders like Lu Dui, Dai Zhou, Li Jing, and Lu Rengui, Li Zishuan was without a doubt the #1 hero in this rebellion. No one could refute this point. Sure enough, Li Er turned his gaze to Li Zishuan and said in a clear voice, Marquis Yong, come forward and receive your conferment. Li Zishuan stepped forward and cupped his hands. Your subject is here. Li Er looked at the dignified Li Zishuan, who was neither servile nor overbearing, and nodded with satisfaction. Then, he looked at the officials and said, In this rebellion of the dragon sect, the Marquis of Yangon first saw through the dragon sect's plot of using thunder and lightning to bombard the imperial ancestral temple, and found in Dezhong, the dragon sect's spy hiding in the imperial palace. This completely destroyed the dragon sect's fantasy of causing chaos in Chang'an. Then, Marquis Yong captured the dragon sect's venerable Sakya Du, who was hiding in Chang'an City. From Sakya Du's mouth, Marquis Yong learned of the dragon sect's plan to attack Chang'an City. Under his meticulous planning, not only did the imperial court completely destroy the dragon sect, they also caught many of their spies in Chang'an City. It can be said that if it wasn't for Marquis Yong Un, the imperial ancestral temple would have been destroyed by the lightning and fire. Even if the imperial court could resist the dragon sect's attack, they would have lost their dignity. This emperor has said before, meritorious service should be rewarded and wrongdoings should be punished. Marquis Yong and Marquis Yunhui General, and Qingzhou Land, 3,000 households, and the provincial governor of Qingzhou City. He will be in charge of the 7 counties of Qingzhou City's military and political affairs. The original governor of Qing Province, Zheng Qingsong, allowed the Heavenly Dragon sect to grow stronger without doing anything. What do my beloved officials? Shocked. The moment Li Er's words fell, not only were all the officials shocked, even Li Zixuan was shocked. Previously, he had the empty title of Junior Guardian of the Crown Prince. Now Li Er gave him the title of Yunhui General. Could this be considered as proof that he was proficient in both the pen and the sword? Of course, what shocked Li Zixuan even more was that old Li actually bestowed the entire Qingzhou to him, and even gave him the title of provincial governor of Qingzhou City. He would be in charge of the 7 counties' military and political affairs. What was this? This was basically equivalent to being a governor of the border. This kind of treatment could only be enjoyed by a prince. Even old generals like Cheng Yaojin and Qin Qiong couldn't compare to it. For example, Cheng Yaojin. Other than the title of Lu Guogong and the position of the right Wuwei general, he also received the position of provincial governor of Luzhou City. However, the entire Luzhou City wasn't Cheng Yaojin's fief. For someone like Li Zixuan, who directly received the title of provincial governor of Luzhou City, it was definitely far beyond the status of a marquis. The main reason was that Li Zixuan had made too many contributions, and Li Er had deliberately suppressed Li Zixuan's title, not wanting him to rise too quickly. At this moment, the civil and military officials in the main hall looked at each other. On the one hand, they were shocked that there were so many hidden dangers in the seemingly peaceful Chang, and over the past 2 days. If the imperial court was careless, it would be in danger of being breached. On the other hand, they were shocked by Li Er's reward for Li Zixuan. Not to mention the establishment of the Tang Empire. Even since the establishment of the position of provincial governor in the Qin Dynasty, there had never been a provincial governor as young as Li Zixuan. Of course, the princes of the previous dynasties were an exception. Your Majesty, the Marquis of Yong, and has indeed contributed greatly to the rebellion of the Heavenly Dragon sect. However, the Marquis of Yong and is still young. Wouldn't the military affairs of a province be too heavy for him? The hall was silent for a moment, then Fang Xianling stepped forward and cupped his hands. Of course, old Fang didn't have a problem with Li Zixuan and didn't want to see Li Zixuan promoted. On the contrary, old Fang admired Li Zixuan, who was capable and not arrogant. He stood up to stop Li Er's reward just to protect Li Zixuan. The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. In Fang Xuanling's view, Li Zixuan was still too young, and climbing too high was not a good thing. Your Majesty, Prime Minister Fang is right. Marquis Yong, and has indeed made great contributions, but Your Majesty, please reconsider the matter of promoting him to provincial governor of Qingzhou. Li Jing hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and cupped his hands. His thoughts were actually the same as Fang Xuanling's. Li Zixuan was still too young, and too high of an official position would be detrimental to his future growth. Li Er's eyes flashed as he looked at the 2 officials who had stepped forward. After a moment of silence, he firmly said, "My 2 beloved officials' concerns are reasonable, but we have our own considerations. Marquis Yong, and is the most suitable candidate for the position of provincial governor of Qingzhou. My decision has been made, my beloved officials need not persuade me anymore. Marquis Yong, why don't you step forward to receive the decree?" Li Er really had his own considerations for handing Qingzhou over to Li Zixuan. First, Qingzhou was the origin of the dragon sect, and also the headquarters behind the dragon sect. This time, the Dragon Head, Venerable, and Sky Dragon Army's generals were all captured, either dead or captured. Although the core members of the dragon sect were captured, there were still countless remnants of the sect among the people. As Qingzhou was the origin of the dragon sect, this situation would be even more serious. Placing Li Zixuan in the position of provincial governor of Qingzhou would more or less serve as a powerful deterrent to the remnants of the dragon sect. Secondly, Qingzhou was located along the eastern coast of the Great Tang. Most of the land was saline and not suitable for growing crops. The people there were many times poorer than those in Guangzhou. Li Zixuan had only been in charge of Lantian County for less than a year, but he had already built the county up. Now, the prosperity of Lantian County's commerce was almost on par with Chang'an. Li Er valued Li Zixuan's ability to make a fortune, which was why he gave Li Zixuan the important task of provincial governor of Qingzhou. After all, the rebellion of the dragon sect had given Li Er a great warning. Although the Great Tang was at peace now, in remote places like Qingzhou, there were still many people who did not have enough to eat and had illnesses that were difficult to treat. This gave the dragon sect, who wanted to bewitch the people, an opportunity to take advantage of. Li Er deeply understood that in order to truly prevent rebellious sects like the dragon sect from appearing in the Great Tang in the future, he only needed to let the poor people live a good life. Think about it, if the people of the Great Tang were as wealthy as the people of Lantian County, who would be willing to risk their lives for the dragon sect to rebel? It had to be said that Li Er, as an emperor, had a different mindset from ordinary people. His foresight was even further than ordinary people. Of course, there was no need to doubt that Qingzhou was a barren land. Although Qingzhou was located along the coast, the ancient coastal areas were not the same as the modern coastal areas. In ancient times, it was dominated by agricultural or nomadic societies. The soil environment of the coastal areas was not suitable for growing crops. Even if it could be grown, the grain yield was not as good as the inland areas. Therefore, in ancient times, the grain-producing areas were mostly located in the central plains. Secondly, the ancient people's understanding and use of the sea was basically zero. In the Tang Dynasty, people would not use the sea to refine salt, much less use some marine products to make money. Moreover, the waterway trade in this era generally referred to the transportation of water. Wherever large rivers were suitable for trade, especially where two rivers intersected, it was often a strategic location. In comparison, the use of sea transportation was relatively less. Therefore, in the past dynasties, the degree of wealth of the inland cities was far greater than that of the coastal areas. There were even many coastal counties that became the place of exile for the imperial court's prisoners. From this, one could see how poor the coastal areas of China were in ancient times. Your Majesty, this official is still young and inexperienced. I'm afraid I can't take on this important task. Your Majesty, please take back your order. Not only did Fang Xianling, Li Jing and the other old officials not want to agree to Li Er's decision, Li Zixuan was also unwilling to agree to it. The main reason was that he was lazy and afraid of trouble. Hearing this, Li Er's eyes narrowed and said in a tone that did not allow for refusal, "You don't have to refuse. I've always been very good at judging people. If I say you can do it, you can definitely do it. The position of governor of Qingzhou belongs to you." Finally, Li Er paused for a moment before finally revealing his true goal. "We hope that you can turn Qingzhou into a fertile land like Lantian County. In the entire Great Tang, other than you, we really can't think of anyone else who has the ability to do so." Hearing Li Er's words, the officials in the hall came to a realization. Fang Xianling, Zhang Sunwuji, Li Jing and the other insightful officials could see Li Er's far-reaching intentions. Suddenly, no one raised any objections, because in the entire imperial court, no one was not convinced by Li Zixuan's ability to create wealth. Li Zixuan felt bitter in his heart. Building Lantian County was already tiring enough for him, and now Old Li had arranged for him to build the entire Qingzhou. He wanted him to govern Qingzhou well. Was he treating him as a money-printing machine? However, Old Li obviously didn't give him any room to object. He had to accept this task even if he didn't want to. Therefore, after complaining in his heart for a while, Li Zishuan could only cup his hands and say, "This official Li Zishuan accepts the decree. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your grace." This acceptance of the decree meant that from now on, he would be a high-ranking official of the border. The Li family could be considered as having some background as a wealthy family. Chapter 16:16. Marquis, please wait. His Majesty has summoned you. Please go to the Sweet Dew Hall. In the imperial palace, Li Zishuan had just exited the gate of heaven influence when a young eunuch ran up from behind him to block his path and hurriedly said, "You're not allowed to leave." Li Zishuan was speechless. Since he entered Chang'an City yesterday, he had been busy until now. He was mentally and physically exhausted. Now that the morning court was finally over, he was planning to take the carriage back to Cloud Mountain. He did not expect Old Li to make him stay alone. This was really disappointing. "All right, I'll go with you to the Sweet Dew Hall." As the saying goes, the arm can't go against the thigh. Although he complained, he couldn't miss Old Li's summons. After answering the eunuch, Li Zishuan turned to the elders around him, including Cheng Yaojin, Qin Qiong, Yuqi Jingda, Niu Jinda, and Li Jing. "Uncles, you can go back first. I still have to return. After that, I will return to Cloud Mountain directly. Tomorrow, I'll come to Chang'an to visit all of you." He had chosen to go up north to kill the locusts and had been gone for half a month. So many things had happened in between. Logically speaking, he should have gone to visit Qin Qiong and the others as soon as he returned to Chang'an. Unfortunately, the dragon sect had rebelled. He could only choose to visit another day. The saint's fate is important. Xiao Xian, go quickly. Qin Qiong smiled and said, "That's right. Go quickly." The others nodded in agreement. Seeing Li Zishuan become a governor today, they were all happy for Li Zishuan. Firstly, they all saw Li Zishuan as their own junior. Secondly, Li Zishuan's career as an official and the emperor's favor was getting better and better. This was good for their descendants. After all, they would also die of old age. When they were old, their descendants would more or less be taken care of by Li Zishuan. "Then I'll take my leave." Li Zishuan cupped his hands and turned to leave. "You've come." A quarter of an hour later, Li Zishuan arrived at the Sweet Dew Hall. Without waiting for him to bow, Li Er, who was sitting at the front reading memorials, raised his head and took the initiative to speak. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Li Zishuan bowed, then cupped his hands and asked, "May I know why Your Majesty has summoned me?" Hearing this, Li Er put down the memorial in his hand and raised his head to ask, "Marquis Yong, and do you know the deeper meaning behind this? I conferred you the position of provincial governor of Qing province?" Li Zishuan pondered for a moment, then cupped his fists and replied, "Your Majesty wants me to bring prosperity to the people and stabilize the eastern part of the Tang Empire. This is to prevent future rebellions and torment living beings." "Ha! You brat. In terms of intelligence, there is probably no one in the entire imperial court who can compare to you." Li Er smiled, then pointed at Li Zishuan and said, "That's right. The main reason Zhen gave you the position of provincial governor of Qing province is because Zhen wants to borrow your ability to bring benefits to the people. Let the people of Qing province become rich as soon as possible so that Zhen can eliminate the influence of Heavenly Dragon sect in Qing province and the nearby provinces and counties. How about it? Do you have the confidence to take on this heavy responsibility?" What do you mean by I don't have the confidence to take on this heavy responsibility? You've already given the death order, so what else can yours truly say? Could it be that I don't have the confidence to take on this heavy responsibility? Hearing this, Li Zixuan almost couldn't hold back his spittle. After cursing in his heart, Li Zixuan pretended to be solemn, cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for your trust. I will do my best to complete Your Majesty's task." "Good, good." Li Er nodded his head in satisfaction, then said in a deep voice, "I summoned you here because I want to hear your thoughts on a few matters." When Li Zixuan heard this, he knew that things weren't as simple as he thought. He stepped forward and cupped his hands. "Your Majesty, please speak." This time, the Dragon Sect's rebellion, the Imperial Court has subdued over 20,000 Dragon Sect members and 10,000 Dragon Sect's regular army. Li Zixuan, in your opinion, how should I deal with these people? After pondering for a moment, Li Er asked. In times of chaos, human lives were like grass. For example, during the Spring and Autumn Warring States period, when Qin state fought against the other 6 countries, not only did they kill tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of enemies, there were also cases of prisoners being killed after the war. During the Battle of Chongping, more than 400,000 prisoners of war from Zhao state were killed, just like that. This was a time of chaos where human lives were like grass. But in times of peace, the situation was completely opposite. Especially now that the world had just settled down, the people needed to rest and recuperate. Population and people were especially important to a country. Basically, there wouldn't be thousands of people being executed at the same time. Because of this, Li Er had a headache because of this matter. Although he was the emperor, he couldn't execute everyone related to the Heavenly Dragon Sect. Your Majesty, this subject believes that those Dragon Sect members were only bewitched by others and went astray. Although they are guilty, they definitely don't deserve death. Gather them together, educate them well, and give them an appropriate amount of labor reform. When they have more or less repented in their hearts, it won't be too late to let them go home. Li Zixuan pondered for a moment before coming up with an idea. Although those commoners who joined the Dragon Sect didn't do anything wrong, but to be bewitched by the Dragon Sect meant that they had greed in their hearts. As the saying goes, one can be strong without desire. If they didn't have greed in their hearts, how could they be used by the Dragon Sect? So if they weren't punished a little, they would lose their fear of the Imperial Court. The next time a sect similar to the Dragon Sect appeared, they would be bewitched again. In fact, the method he was talking about was the modern prison reform. This kind of thing actually existed in ancient times as well. However, the prisoners in ancient times were usually sent to the border, the mines, or directly to repair the city walls. These jobs were not only hard, but also very dangerous. Basically, there was a slim chance of survival. Sure enough, Li Er frowned and said hesitantly, "You mean to send all these people to the mines or the borders? Wouldn't that be too wasteful? And it would easily incite the anger of the people?" "Your Majesty, this subject didn't mean that," Li Zixuan hurriedly explained. "The Great Tang doesn't have that many mines and the borders don't need these commoners. This subject means to let these commoners work for the Imperial Court for a period of time. They will be provided with good food and drink 3 times a day. Other than not being paid and having no freedom, they are no different from the commoners who go out to work and subsidize the family. Moreover, this way the Imperial Court can speed up the progress of some projects and save a lot of money for the Imperial Court." Li Er pinched his chin and said, "Your method is interesting, but the Imperial Court doesn't need to repair the palace, the city, or the Imperial Mausoleum. What do I need so many commoners for?" Hearing this, Li Zixuan said with disappointment, "Your Majesty, don't you plan to repair the cement roads for Chang'an City? Now in Lantian County, not only have the cement roads been completely renovated, but thousands of households will soon be able to use electric lights. If Chang'an City wants to do this, not only does it need to repair the cement roads, it also needs to build a power station. All these require commoners and manpower. Li Er's eyes suddenly lit up. He clapped his hands excitedly and said, "Why didn't I think of this? Good. We'll do as you say. This way we can punish the commoners who are easily bewitched by the dragon sect and make them not dare to easily flout the law in the future. It can also save a lot of money for the imperial court to build roads and power stations. You really have the essence of a profiteer." Li Zishuan's face darkened and said gloomily in his heart, "I'm helping you with the idea, why are you still scolding me? Where's the basic quality of a country's ruler?" Seeing Li Zishuan's gloomy face, Li Er, who knew that he said the wrong thing, coughed and said, "Cough, cough. I'll leave the matter of building the cement roads in Chang, an city, to the Ministry of Works. As for building the power station, I can only leave it to your Yanhuang College. I hope that before the end of next year, Chang, an city, will have electricity and electric lights like Lantian County." Li Zishuan said helplessly, "I'll do my best." Building a power station that could supply millions of people was such a big project that even Li Zishuan himself wasn't confident. He could only tell Li Er that he would do his best. But fortunately, his mental strength was super strong now. He could basically construct modern large-scale industrial machinery in his mind. If a worker wants to do a good job, he must first sharpen his tools. After he built some corresponding industrial machinery, it would be much easier to build the power station. Li Er nodded happily. He had always been envious of the Yunshan mountain that was brightly lit at night. Now that Li Zishuan mentioned this, it was exactly what he wanted. After a pause, he asked again, "In your opinion, how should I deal with Du Yi and the Sky Dragon army?" Li Zishuan's heart skipped a beat. This question wasn't easy to answer. After pondering for a moment, he cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, Du Yi first used witchcraft to bewitch the people into joining the Sky Dragon sect. Then, he tried to kidnap the Crown Prince and the Princess in Shi City. This is a heinous crime and should be cut into pieces. However, after he was captured, he actively cooperated with the court to deal with the Sky Dragon sect. As for how to deal with him, I'm sure your Majesty already has a conclusion. Why ask me?" "Ha! You sly little guy." Li Er was stunned when he heard this. He couldn't help but point at Li Zishuan and scold him with a smile. Li Zishuan pursed his lips and didn't say anything. After a pause, Li Er said, "As you said, this Du Yi is indeed a heinous crime. However, without his active cooperation, the court wouldn't have been able to know the deployment of the Sky Dragon sect's troops in advance. However, if we let him go so easily, wouldn't we be giving him another chance to wreak havoc? Otherwise, I'll reduce him to a slave and bestow him to be your servant. With your ability, it shouldn't be a problem to control a small Du Yi, right?" Li Zishuan, who thought that this matter had nothing to do with him and was unconcerned, widened his eyes in surprise. He never thought that Li Er's method would be so wild that he actually wanted to bestow Du Yi to him as a servant. Wasn't this a joke? "Your Majesty, you can't do that." Li Zishuan, who came back to his senses, quickly waved his hand and said, "My house is small. It can't accommodate a servant like Du Yi. Besides, I'm worried that the servant will take advantage of the master." Li Er smiled and said, "Ha ha. Since that's the case, I'll kill him. A light sentence could decide a person's life and death." This was Li Er, this was the imperial power. Kill. Li Zishuan was stunned. Logically speaking, although Du Yi was a heinous crime, no one could deny that he had skills. For such a person who wasn't so bad that he couldn't be saved and had skills, wouldn't it be a pity to kill him so casually? That's right, it was a pity. This was Li Zishuan's subconscious thought. Killing him like this, wouldn't it be too easy for him? Let him be a servant for the rest of his life. After hesitating for a moment, Li Zishuan said, "Ha ha." Li Er laughed. He seemed to have seen through Li Zishuan's thoughts, so he walked down and patted Li Zishuan's shoulder, saying, "You're really smart. This kind of person with skills is like a weapon. This weapon can only be sharp or not, but it can't be said to be good or bad. Whether it's good or bad, it all depends on the master of the weapon. I'm very pleased that you can understand this point." Li Zishuan felt the same way and said, "Your Majesty's words are also what I think. Thank you, Your Majesty, for pointing out the right path for me." Lier nodded and said, "Haha. In your opinion, how should we deal with the remaining 10,000 Sky Dragon troops?" Chapter 16-17. Your Majesty, the soldiers of the Celestial Dragon Army mostly came from Qingzhou, Qi, and other places. Many of them were ordinary civilians, and some of them were once soldiers of the Great Tang who fought for the Great Tang. Most of them received the grace of the Celestial Dragon sect and rebelled in order to repay their kindness. This subject does not dare to say how Your Majesty will deal with them, but this subject earnestly requests that Your Majesty not generalize and condemn all of them to death. The people of Qingzhou live in hardships, and this is the true reason why the Celestial Dragon sect was able to lead so many people to rebel. Within the Sweet Dew Hall, Li Zishuan bowed towards Lier. Li Junxian had explained the situation of the Celestial Dragon Army to him, so he naturally knew of Meng Wuchang's story. There were no absolutes between good and evil. For many people, there was always a sense of helplessness in this world. In order to fulfill his filial duty and repay his mother's kindness, Meng Wuchang had ultimately given up his loyalty to the sovereign. This was the helplessness and sorrow of the common people, and it was also the dilemma of loyalty and filial piety. Lier nodded and said, "The Celestial Dragon Army aided the wicked and rebelled against their superiors. Their crimes are indeed punishable by death, but what you said just now was not without reason. Now that the main culprit has been eliminated, we will deal with the ordinary soldiers as appropriate." Li Zishuan clasped his hands in admiration and said, "Your Majesty is wise." Lier waved his hand and said, "Enough, brat, don't flatter us. You just came back from the north and probably haven't had time to go home yet, right? We won't keep you. Go back." Li Zishuan was just about to take his leave when he suddenly thought of something and hastily said, "Your Majesty, the Celestial Dragon sect used the Jade Lake holy water to bewitch the people. Although the quantity is small and many people who have drunk the Jade Lake holy water have not become addicted, there is still a small number of people who have become addicted. This subject hopes that Your Majesty can make arrangements for these people as soon as possible. Otherwise, these people who have become addicted will definitely become a tumor of the Great Tang." Lier frowned and said, "Then how do you think we should deal with those people who have become addicted to the Jade Lake holy water? Could it be that he had to kill them all? If that's the case, I'm afraid I'll be criticized by the world." Li Zishuan shook his head and said, "That is not my intention. What this subject means is that the imperial court can gather these people who are addicted to the holy water together and manage them like a military camp. Let them completely cut off their relationship with the holy water. It will take at least a month, at most 3 to 4 months, and they will definitely be able to kick their addiction to the holy water." Actually, what Li Zishuan said was similar to a modern drug rehabilitation center. However, since it was newly built, it wasn't as formal as the modern one. "That's one way to go about it. I understand. I will have someone make the arrangements. You may leave." Lier thought for a moment and nodded. Li Zishuan cupped his hands and said, "This subject shall take his leave." Li Zishuan couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief when the real morning court session finally began. After leaving the Sweet Dew Hall, Li Zishuan walked straight to the palace gate. However, he didn't expect to meet Li Chengxian and Li Lizzie on the bridge near the Gate of Heaven Influence. "Little Xian, congratulations on becoming the governor of Qingzhou. Luckily, father only gave you the position of governor. Otherwise, we would have to part ways again. Li Qingxian came forward with Chang'e and looked at Li Zishuan with a warm smile on his face. As the heir to the throne of Great Tang, Li Qingxian had always been present at the morning court. Naturally, he knew about Li Zishuan's outstanding contributions and the generous rewards he had received in the war against the rebellion. Of course, as a friend, Li Qingxian was sincerely happy for Li Zishuan's achievement. Haha. Qingxian, don't you understand me? I don't want to be an official. If possible, I'd rather hide in the cloud mountains and be a wild crane. Every day, I plant flowers and vegetables and watch the sun rise and set. Li Zishuan stopped in his tracks, looked at Li Qingxian and his sister, and smiled. These words were not pretentious. They were Li Zishuan's heartfelt words. Along the way, he had been forced to be an official by Li Er. Furthermore, his position was getting higher and higher. Now, he didn't even have time to accompany his family. Of course, he only called Li Qingxian by his name when he saw that there was no one around. If there were other people present, he would normally call Li Qingxian Crown Prince. The main reason was that he didn't want people to gossip. Haha. If these words were said by someone else, I might not believe them. However, little Xian, it's a different matter. Li Qingxian smiled and said. Li Zishuan shook his head and didn't reply. Instead, he looked at Chang Lu and said, Qingxian, Chang Lu, the two of you were kidnapped by Du Yi in Shi City yesterday. Were you frightened? Following the annihilation of the dragon sect, Li Qingxian and Chang Lu also knew that the assassin who kidnapped them yesterday and almost killed them was Du Yi. Now that they heard Li Zishuan mention Du Yi, the siblings couldn't help but feel a trace of lingering fear on their faces. I'm fine. It's just Chang Lu. I heard from the palace maids that she had a few nightmares last night and didn't sleep well. Li Qingxian's expression froze. Then, he patted Chang Li's shoulder worriedly and said, After all, Chang Lu was only an 8 or 9-year-old girl. Encountering such a dangerous situation would inevitably leave a shadow in her heart. Brother Crown Prince, when did I? Don't listen to their nonsense. Chang'e was embarrassed when she heard this, and her face instantly flushed red. After that, she raised her head to gaze at Li Zishuan and said, Big brother little Xian, don't worry. Chang'e was just slightly terrified. I'm fine now. It's good that you're fine. Li Zishuan nodded thoughtfully and said, Since the matter has already passed, Chang Lu and Qingxian don't think too much about it. If you have time, go out of the palace more often. After a few days, you'll completely forget about it. But the next time you go out of the palace, remember to bring more guards. Before Li Qingxian could say anything, Chang Lu hurriedly nodded in response. Li Qingxian could only helplessly shake his head. Just as he was about to speak, a group of people suddenly arrived. 2 soldiers wearing armor and a prisoner wearing a white prison uniform with his head lowered. Greetings to Your Highness the Crown Prince, Your Highness the Princess, and greetings to Marquis. As they approached, the 2 soldiers hurriedly bowed and saluted. What's the matter? Li Qingxian couldn't help but frown when he saw the strange formation of this group of people and asked, Your Highness, I'm here to deliver a servant for the Marquis of Yong'an. The soldier cupped his fists and bowed as he replied, Deliver a servant? Hearing this, Li Qingxian raised his eyebrows in surprise. He turned to look at Li Zishuan and asked with a smile, Xiao Xian, did you have a servant in your family who was captured and brought into the palace? Why haven't I heard anyone mention it? Haha. Let me see if I know this servant. As he spoke, Li Qingxian bent down slightly and looked at the prisoner with his head lowered. Just one look and he almost pissed his pants. Du Yi? How could it be the venerable Du Yi of the Heavenly Dragon sect? After seeing the prisoner's appearance clearly, Li Qingxian was shocked and hurriedly took 2 steps back. His voice was trembling. After all, just yesterday, he almost died in the hands of this prisoner in front of him. Brother Xiaoxian, he really is Du Yi. Chang'e was much shorter than Li Chengqian. The little girl didn't need to bend down to see the prisoner's appearance clearly. Hearing Li Chengqian's words, she couldn't help but look over. After seeing clearly, she couldn't help but take 2 steps closer to Li Zixuan and exclaimed. Li Zixuan hurriedly said, Chengqian, Chang'e, don't be afraid. Du Yi has already surrendered to the imperial court. He won't dare to harm you anymore. Prisoner Du Yi pays his respects to Your Highness the Crown Prince and Your Highness the Princess. I have offended Your Highnesses yesterday. Please forgive me. After Li Zixuan finished speaking, Du Yi had already knelt down in front of Li Chengqian and Chang'e and performed a Buddhist greeting as he spoke in a deep voice. At this moment, Du Yi was like a docile and obedient sheep. He didn't have any aggressiveness and was completely different from the fierce image he had in Shi City yesterday. In this short period of time, Li Chengqian had already recovered from his initial panic. He straightened his face and said with a dignified expression, Get up first. Thank you, Your Highness the Crown Prince. Du Yi raised his head and said gratefully. At this moment, Li Chengqian looked at Li Zixuan and asked in surprise, Xiaoxian, what's going on? How did Du Yi become your domestic servant? Li Zixuan rubbed between his eyebrows and said with a headache, This is a gift from His Majesty. How would I dare to refuse? Although having a master realm monk as a domestic servant seemed very impressive, and such a capable domestic servant could help his master do many things, it was tantamount to dancing on the edge of a knife. You had to be constantly on guard against the evil servant killing your master. The destructive power of a domestic servant was directly proportional to his ability. At first, Li Zixuan didn't want to let Du Yi be his domestic servant. However, if he let Li Er kill Du Yi just like that, he couldn't bear it. Firstly, the reason why this rebellion was so successful was because Du Yi had played a role that couldn't be ignored. Secondly, it would be a pity if such a Master Realm expert was killed just like that. After all, there were only a few Master Realm experts in this world. They were considered rare animals. What? Father? Father gave Du Yi to you to be your domestic servant? Hearing this, Li Chengqian widened his eyes in shock. Although he was Li Er's son, he couldn't understand what was going on in Li Er's mind. Chang'e also opened her small mouth in surprise. She looked up at Li Zixuan in disbelief. Her bright and beautiful little face was very cute. Under the gaze of the siblings, Li Zixuan nodded and said, His Majesty said that Du Yi not only has martial arts, but also has superb illusory skills. He can't be let out easily and continue to harm the world. Either kill him or reduce his slave status to be my domestic servant. Chengqian, what do you think I should choose? In the end, Li Zixuan helplessly spread out his hands. He felt that he had been tricked by Li Er again. Hearing this, Du Yi closed his eyes and performed a Buddhist ritual. He silently chanted Amitabha with a complicated expression on his face. Li Chengqian smacked his lips. After thinking for a moment, he said, What's done can't be undone. It's too late for me to say anything. Everyone knows that Xiaoxian, you're famous for your kindness. However, only you, little Xian, can control such a servant. Li Zixuan rolled his eyes and thought to himself, Didn't I still fall for your father's evil trick? However, he definitely couldn't say this out loud. Instead, he changed the topic and asked, Chengqian, Du Yi previously harmed you and Chang'e. Will you still bear a grudge against him in the future? Since Du Yi was about to become his domestic servant, he felt that there were some things that needed to be made clear in advance. If Li Chengqian still held a grudge against Du Yi, then he would immediately kill Du Yi. It wasn't that he wanted to curry favor with Li Chengqian, but he felt that he couldn't hurt the friendship between him and Li Chengqian because of an outsider like Du Yi. It wasn't worth it. Li Chengqian thought for a moment and shook his head. When Imperial Father just ascended the throne, He was tolerant of the civil and military officials who relied on Imperial Uncle. Although I'm not as good as Imperial Father, I still have this bit of tolerance. As long as Du Yi doesn't do evil again and can serve you well, Xiaoxian, I naturally won't bear a grudge against him. Li Zixuan looked at Li Chengxian with slight surprise. He didn't expect Li Chengxian to have such a view. Compared to Li Ku and Li Tai, Li Chengxian was obviously more mature. This maturity was mainly reflected in his thinking and awareness. This palace was indeed a good place to train people's hearts. Brother Xiaoxian, Chang'e heard that when the dragon sect besieged Chang'an city this time, it was Du Yi who shouted from the top of the city wall that caused the morale of the 30,000 ordinary dragon sect members to collapse and kneel down to surrender. In this way, he can be considered to have saved many lives and can't be considered a complete villain. Therefore, Chang'e supports Brother Xiaoxuan's choice. As long as he can help the people with Brother Xiaoxian in the future, Chang'e won't bear a grudge against him. At this moment, Chang'e also voiced her opinion. Hearing this, Du Yi opened his eyes and looked at Li Chengxian and Chang'e with eyes full of surprise. Of course, there was also a trace of emotion. He was touched by Chang'e's kindness. Haha, good. Since that's the case, I'll bring him back. Li Zixuan smiled and said. Li Chengxian and Chang'e nodded and then cupped their hands to bid farewell to Li Zixuan. All right. Let him go. Li Zixuan waved his hand at the two soldiers, indicating for them to let Du Yi go. Yes, Marquis. The two hesitated for a moment, but finally followed Li Zixuan's instructions and let go of Du Yi's shoulders. Who knew that Li Zixuan frowned and continued, open the iron shackles on his hands and feet. Marquis. This person's martial arts are excellent, the leading officer couldn't help but say. Li Zixuan waved his hand and said, It's fine. Do as I say and open the iron shackles. Yes. The two had no choice but to take out the keys from their waists and open the iron shackles on Du Yi's hands and feet. All right. You can go back and report. Li Zixuan said to the two of them, then turned his head and smiled. He said to Du Yi, Let's go. Follow me back to the residence. Yes, Marquis. Du Yi nodded and replied without joy or sorrow. Then, the master and servant walked towards the palace gate one after the other. Chapter 16-18. When they left the imperial palace, the scorching sun was in the sky, and the streets were almost empty. Firstly, the battle outside the city in the morning had caused a trace of panic among the people in the city. At this time, Chang'an city was definitely not as lively as before. Secondly, it was lunchtime, and most of the people had gone home to eat. Very few people would be loitering on the street. Li Zixuan walked in front, and Du Yi followed behind with Big White. Previously, when he was holding Big White at the stables outside the imperial palace, Du Yi had changed into a gray monk's robe under Li Zixuan's instructions. Although he had been locked up in the Supreme Court prison for a day, he looked no different from an ordinary person after changing his clothes. The main reason was that monks did not have hair. Otherwise, with the ancient people's habit of keeping long hair, his hair would have become a lump after staying in prison for a night. A master, a servant, and a horse slowly walked on Vermilion Bird Avenue. No one spoke. Although Du Yi lowered his head and walked silently, he was puzzled in his heart as to why Li Zixuan did not ride a horse but walked instead. However, the question in his heart would be answered very soon. The two of them turned out of the Vermilion Bird Boulevard and came to an old ginkgo tree on the west side of the Ping Kong Lane. Li Zixuan suddenly stopped in his tracks. Fortunately, Du Yi's reaction was fast, otherwise, he would have bumped into Li Zixuan. Marquis Du Yi opened his mouth and was about to say something. Who knew? Clang? Li Zixuan directly turned around, pulled out the wind-chasing sword at his waist, and pointed it directly at Du Yi. The air suddenly stagnated. Du Yi's heart tightened, and his hair instantly stood on end. He subconsciously clenched his fist, but that was all. He did not make any further moves. These details naturally all fell into Li Zishuan's eyes. He secretly nodded, and then the wind-chasing sword in his hand made a sword flower. The sword that was originally pointed at Du Yi suddenly turned into the sword hilt. What does Marquis mean by this? Du Yi was surprised and puzzled. You hold it first. Li Zishuan smiled mysteriously. Holding the sword hilt in his hand, he moved it in front of Du Yi and said. Du Yi looked at the wind-chasing sword in Li Zishuan's hand, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. But after hesitating for a long time, he still didn't reach out to take it. Instead, he shook his head and said, "This is Marquis's sword. This poor monk is now a servant of the Marquis residence. I can't take it. This Marquis wants you to take it, so take it." Li Zishuan's face darkened as he said, not allowing anyone to object. With that, he took 2 steps forward and stuffed the hilt of the wind-chasing sword into Du Yi's hands. Then, he took 2 steps back and said, "Before yesterday, you were a venerable of the Heavenly Dragon sect, second only to one, but because of this Marquis, you became a prisoner. Now you've become a servant of the Marquis mansion. This Marquis knows you have resentment in your heart, so I'll give you another chance for revenge. Now, as long as you can defeat me, this Marquis will immediately return your freedom. If you fail, you'll have to be this Marquis' servant. Moreover, you'll have to swear an oath to Buddha that you'll never betray him." Hearing this, Du Yi couldn't help but be completely stunned. He never thought that Li Zishuan would come up with such a move, giving him a chance to turn things around. On one hand, he could easily obtain his freedom. On the other hand, he was facing the powerful Li Zishuan. Du Yi was in a dilemma and didn't know how to choose. Seeing Du Yi hesitate, Li Zishuan added, "This Marquis has always been open and aboveboard. If there's hatred or resentment, I like to put it on the surface. Today, this Marquis will give you a chance for revenge. Even if you use the sword in your hand to kill this Marquis will not say anything and will only blame myself for not being skilled enough. But if you don't take advantage of today's opportunity and choose to play tricks on this Marquis in the future, then don't blame this Marquis for being ruthless. So, pick up the sword in your hand and come for revenge." Du Yi looked at Li Zishuan with a complicated gaze, then turned his gaze to the wind-chasing sword's slender and cold sword. Take it or not take it? Fight or not fight? Du Yi's heart was in a real battle of heaven and man at this moment. After a long time, Du Yi let out a long sigh. Holding a Buddhist salute, he said, "Amit Ba, Marquis, this penniless monk is not someone who doesn't know what's good for him. The Heavenly Dragon sect's fate is already at its end. It's only a matter of time before it's defeated. If not for Marquis willing to take this penniless monk in, this penniless monk would have been killed by His Majesty the Emperor." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.